Civic Space TV, freedom always. Good afternoon and welcome to today's edition of the Citizens Chat Show. I am Phillip Muliisa. Today, we are looking at the significance of the opposition boycott of Parliament, especially in light of the Ministry of Internal Affairs report on the claims on the issues raised by the leader of opposition and all the opposition legislators in the Ugandan Parliament. But also later in the show, we shall discuss a bit about COP28 that is happening in Dubai. To discuss those matters is a panel of distinguished citizens of this country, whom I will introduce. Starting with, from the NRM, retired Major Awich Pollar, who is the Director of External Affairs. Major, you're most welcome to the show.
Thank you so much and good evening to our viewers.
We have Counsel Eron Kiiza. Counsel, you're most welcome to the show.
Thank you. It's always a pleasure to be in this space.
Thank you. And Dr. Ojambo Robert from Kyambogo University. Doctor, you're most welcome to the show.
Thank you so much, Philip. Good evening, viewers.
Thank you. And lastly but not least, Dr. Sarah Bireete from the Center for Constitutional Governance. Doctor, you're most welcome.
Thank you and good afternoon, viewers.
You introduce him as a counsel. You forget me and Sarah, we are also counsel. You are selectively.
Apologies on that, but the record has it that you're a very good counsel in this motherland. Thank you so much, Major. Now, 2 days ago, the Ministry of Internal Affairs put out a report responding to the allegations of the opposition. The leader of opposition put out very many things that happened in this country: missing individuals, abducted people, detention without trial, vehicles that were spotted or were involved in killing of Ugandans during the 2021 elections, and many other. And 2 days ago, the Ministry of Internal Affairs responded to this. We want to see, was it a conclusive response? How did it sit in the hearts of the NRM, the hearts of the academia, the hearts of civil society? And before we dig deeply into the matters one by one, I want to get the general feeling from the individuals I have on the show on how they received this report. I'll begin with Dr. Sarah. How did you see this report from the Ministry of Internal Affairs?
Well, for me, it was a slight attempt at accountability by the executive. But when you read the detailed report, you just see a government fighting, struggling to find excuses for violations of the fundamental rights and freedoms of Ugandans. I wish that time that the regime spent finding excuses for violating the rights was put to protection and upholding of rights and freedoms as enjoined by the Constitution. So it's just an excuse for violating rights.
Thank you so much. Dr. Robert Ojambo, the report.
Yeah, I read the report and I read it carefully because this is something that is trying to explain life and death. Outside there are people without fathers, there are people without mothers, there are people who have lost their children who they were depending on, and many other Ugandans who are taxpayers and very important people in our country. And therefore, this is something that we should take very seriously. Right now, we are here discussing how we feel about the report. We have even left the real matter, which would be the protection of rights and freedoms of the people in our country. Because I don't think that this required even defense or opposition or not opposition. The issues are clear. And therefore, when I read that report, I was so perturbed. I wondered whether humans have gone so low that they now want even to justify the death of people. For example, I'll give you a statement where the minister in his report was saying that somebody died because he was trying to jump on a vehicle and he missed the vehicle and fell down. That in itself is abdication of duty, because I don't think in this country anybody is allowed to jump on vehicles. When we are driving on the road there is traffic police, there is everything not to allow anything. And the reason why they don't even allow certain things to happen is because they want the security of the people. But somebody is now using it as an excuse of somebody dying, which I know is a lie. That one is a lie, a big lie. If we were to use these cameras and check properly, you would really see that it's a lie. So the report really puts us in a very ugly situation, in my view, that in this country, now they are making Amin look a star. Yesterday, my friend Spire made a simple vote, and he put 4 presidents, that if there was election today, who would you vote for? Milton Obote, Yoweri Museveni, Idi Amin, and I think another one. By the time I checked, Idi Amin was at 57, Yoweri Museveni was at 16, and Obote was at 8%. And these were in town here, people who understand and people who are well versed with the information. So why do you think people are thinking so? People have now started saying that, oh, the things that people used to talk about Amin either were false or are normal things, because they are the ones we are seeing today. So the report, we needed to really look at it a little carefully and analyze it. And I think when we come to looking at the nitty-gritties, I'll give. But for now, for me, the report was neither there, it was wish-wash.
Thank you so much, Dr. Robert Ojambo. Counsel Eron, how did you receive the report?
Yeah, it was evasive. It was sometimes someone can refuse to report by reporting, and I think that's what the minister said. He performed the ritual, but he avoided answering, giving real answers to the central questions. As I speak, I think we are still looking for the missing persons. We don't know where they are, and that's one of the crucial aspects. I don't see the justice that has been done for the people who have been aggrieved in all of this. And the report itself has been vomited after a lot of squeezing, public squeezing. Why should it take a demonstration on the floor of Parliament for government to do its work? It's the duty of government to protect us, to protect our life and our property. And when it fails, it should quickly account for that failure. If people die, they should own up, and then if people die in the circumstances they die, they should compensate the victims, the families, and the compensation should be prompt, it should be adequate, and we should have guarantees of non-repetition. Belonging to opposition, political opposition in this country is not a crime. Demonstrating is not a crime. And the minister didn't emphasize that. Blaming, because he was pushing back against sweeping statements. Now, sweeping statements criticizing people who attended those demonstrations as violent without pointing out who was violent and who was not is not ministerial. So he needs to repeat this class. If he was in a school, I would mark him failed, and I would say repeat.
Thank you so much, Counsel. And Major Awich, the NRM works very well under pressure. It took the opposition to boycott Parliament for the NRM government to produce a report. How was this report?
The report was good. Contrary to my land friends, I think the minister passed. With the flying colors.
What marking
Here is
scheme are
the
you
report.
using?
Here is the report. Here is the report. And what you should know is that the leader of opposition or the opposition asked for a comprehensive report. So nobody knows the test for comprehensiveness.
But he
And
did
you
ask
can't
for
measure-
a pack of lies.
You can't measure comprehensive in comprehensogram or comprehensometer. But he said he wanted a comprehensive report. To the extent that the report is 311 pages. Two, I want to say that as a state, as a government, even when you are reporting to UN, as a government, you are supposed to make reports which are institutional based. In other words, you don't make a report on ad hoc basis. Okay? You should put in place the laws that govern what the subject matter, the institutions that have been developed to effectively monitor the subject matter, and cases where similar situations have been handled. And this is what happened. So I'm okay with the report. My only worry is that it took that long, of course, but you can see 311 pages. Because as government, you have to go to institutions which handle these matters. For example, you are talking of impunity of the army officers and men who are beating people, who are alleged to be beating. You need to go to court martial and ask the army, do you people punish soldiers who misbehave? Then court martial will say, yes, give me the list. You do the same to police. You do the same to human rights court. What have you done to people who have brought claims? So assembling these documents in the government agencies take time. Now about the missing persons, I hope we shall discuss it at some stage. But for the report, I'm happy that government did it. And I said yesterday on NBS that it's the duty of the front bench to answer on issues raised by opposition. If government can respond on an issue of national importance about a flood in a Amolata or flood in a Kotido, and government responds, why not respond on issues of human rights? So it is a duty of the front bench in parliament to report, and I'm glad that it was responded to.
Thank you so much, Major. Now, I want us to go case by case in the issues raised by the leader of opposition, and for the benefit of the viewer, I want to read through the responses of the minister briefly as we engage on those particular issues. Issue number one, the statement that Uganda is among the worst human rights abusers. The minister says this is sweeping, unsubstantiated, and false. It is and remains government's enduring policy and conviction to respect and protect human rights. In the unlikely event that the unlikely event that the infraction by individual agents of government, whether in the course of their employment or outside the scope of their employment, or even where private citizens are involved in alleged abuses, the matter can only be addressed in specific terms and not in casual and generalized terms. Relatedly, I would want also from the onset to debunk the misrepresentation in the title of the statement by the leader of opposition about the generalized claim of gross human rights abuses and the so-called shrinking civic space. He says, democracies evolve. Uganda is one of them. We have made tremendous, remarkable strides, from the individual merit movement system, which was all-inclusive, to the multi-party dispensation that obtains today. The decision to introduce the current political dispensation was conscious and deliberate, and allow those who felt uncomfortable under the movement broad-based shelter to seek the ideological shelter of their comfort for political expression. While the movement system was non-exclusive and served well in the interim period to foster national unity post-liberation, the multi-party system allows for people to politically organize distinctively and exclusively around their party ideology. The expanded civic space created by the bold measure of government has enabled the obtaining diversity in the character of our national politics, including the composition of parliament, which is comprised variously by members of the NRM, different political parties, independents, and special interest groups. Quite often, you may hear voices castigating this diversity. This variety, with all its peculiar characteristics, however, such are compromises of democracy, especially nascent democracies to afford equal space to everyone to participate in the politics of the country. Some costs notwithstanding. Possibilities and opportunities have therefore been opened for everyone thanks to the government's big tent approach in some. The space that allows the emergence of such diverse participation and expression can be anything but shrinking. That is response in regard to statement that Uganda is among the worst human rights abusers in the world. Now, I want to start with you, Dr. Sarah, who is from the civil society. The minister fully rubbishes the idea that the civic space in this country is shrinking, is on a low, is in a bad state. How do you receive such comments?
Well, I think to give credit to General David Muhoozi, he was among he got a first class law degree at Makerere. So he was among the brilliant law students of his year. He really attempted to hide the pregnancy with his hands, hiding behind illegal jargons. If you look at shrinking civic space, what is shrinking civic space? It means that there are hardships and difficulties when it comes to citizens' participation in their governance. That's the simple meaning of civic space, is how do citizens participate in governance. So when you have a situation of shrinking civic space, you're looking at barriers of citizen participation in governance. You're looking at laws. We have 18 laws in this country that contradict Article 29 on freedom of association, expression, conscience, freedom of religion and movement. 5 freedoms in Article 29 are contradicted by 18 laws. And these 18 laws, are enacted deliberately to constrain the fundamental rights and freedoms of the people. When it comes to assembly, association, and speech, you have laws like Public Order Management Act. So far, 5 sections of the law have been outlawed by the Constitution, the Constitutional Court, including the notorious Section 8 of POMA, which was the first to be repealed, where it was put that a minister or a police officer should authorize or deny people to assemble instead of regulating the assembly and providing security. It was the first section to be struck down by the Constitutional Court. Later, 3 others were struck down by the same court. So why is it that we make laws that are struck down by court? Do we say that lawyers in government don't understand the Constitution? Or they deliberately enact draconian clauses in our laws to constrain the freedoms, like take away the freedoms in the Bill of Rights? If you look at the NGO Act, there are sections being challenged in the Constitutional Court. I am among the petitioners. Section 44 and others in the NGO Act. And those are the same clauses that the government uses to close civil society organizations. When you come, for example, the Computer Misuse Amendment Act, I know the Computer Misuse Act, Section 23, was struck down under the petition by Uganda Law Society. But you have the other draconian Computer Misuse Amendment Act of 2022. It again takes away freedom of expression when it comes to internet freedoms in this country. And 5 of the sections are being challenged in the Constitutional Court, and so many others. So when you say that there are no constraints, we are allowed multipartism, it's as if, fundamental rights are inherent. But it's as if NRM has assumed the role of God and they bestow upon you rights. Rights and freedoms are inherent. The duty of the state, as enshrined in Article 20, is to protect and uphold these rights. It is not to grant or take away. But the government assumes as if they have the power of God to grant these rights. So when you say that because of multipartyism, everybody is free to participate, let's go to political rights. How do people participate in this country? The political parties are chained. The best way to describe multi-party dispensation in this country is to officiate a football match, put up Man U versus Arsenal, chain Man U and let Arsenal beat it. That's how NRM participates in elections. That's how NRM participates. That's the political space in this country. All the other opposition parties are chained. Chained in terms of limited funding, chained in terms of the way they are treated by police and the army when they go to meet people. Yet political parties must recruit through public rallies, must recruit through popularizing the agenda and convincing the people to buy into this agenda. But let opposition hold rallies. I know that somebody might say, recently NUP was in tours. But how did we go through the 2021 campaigns? I was among the observers in this country, domestic election observers. We documented, we have a pictorial documentation of 2021 elections from nomination to announcement of results. Right on nomination, 2 presidential candidates were arrested and brutalized, suits torn by the army and police. The next day, we saw the violence against opposition rallies hiding under the guise of COVID regulations. You are going to die, you are going to die, and the state decided to kill people before COVID. You saw, and the test I want to use of the violence that happened, and the result of these debates and opposition boycott in parliament, most of it is around 2021 elections. General Ojambo's rallies were broken by police and army 45 times. Many people regard General Ojambo as the most peaceful political actor in this country. Of course, they blackmail others that they are radicals. So if we say this is a peaceful political actor, why were his rallies dispersed 45 times? On a campaign trail that had less than 30 days. Because they were less than 2 months of campaigning. 45 times, and we have documentation, pictorial. The army shooting at rallies, the army killing people, the police grabbing political actors from radio stations, including paid up airtime on radio stations. This is civic space. It is not the theory and slogan that General Muhoozi is throwing before citizens of this country, as if everybody is good. He did not answer anything.
Thank you so much, Dr. Sarah. And I want to come straight to you, Major, which you seem to be very busy on this topic. But when the minister says it is false, it is unsubstantiated, and Doctor here says the NRM has taken over the role of God, was this the response a minister should have come with on the floor of parliament?
Yes. I think we're mixing two things here. The feeling that the minister is taking the role of a court to demand for substantiation, but also the position that the minister is responding. If you are alleging to me because I'm responding to you, and I find the allegations is not there, then you have not, substantiating means you have put in a shallow thing, but you have not put the substance there. So even the grammatical sense. So the minister was responding to that. So that was a perfect response. Now, for example, the opposition have the tendency of twisting things the other way around. They allege to you and they want you to disprove it or to prove it. The principle is he who alleges has the burden of proof. But even government has tried that, to do it. For example, in this report, the minister said the 18 people who were alleged, government, instead of saying, you said David Matovo, for example, is lost, tell me he was a son of who, he was from where, give me evidence. Now they give government. Now that lack of substantiation, you can see here the list of the 18. Government would go to NERA to see, because every adult you...
Major, before we address the issue of the missing persons, let us talk the shrinking civic space. Doctor here has told us that the rallies of General Mugisha Muntu were broken 45 times. Not mentioning NUP, FDC, she did tell us about 2 candidates being stripped.
And Katumba Wamara.
So you're abandoning your own question. Your question was, the minister is talking of lack of substantiation. I am saying if you allege something and you want me to prove, it is supposed to be you to prove. Now you want me to prove. Okay, fine, you have abandoned your question. Let's go to the shrinking space that you are talking about. You see, the opposition gave 6 grounds for their walking away. Part of it was the shrinking space, then the Muslim thing, and then the trial in army courts, and then the whatever it is. Now,
the most important is the missing people.
No, which is this one, which is Tint Salvi. I hope we will come to it.
And what is asking you about is
so the shrinking space. You see, when you look at those 6 issues, I just looked at it like a collection from a textbook. To me, knowing that these accusations have been repeated and government have answered, in fact, it was even enough for the minister to write a cover letter and say, referred to the following reports, because these reports were there. So the shrinking space is just one of those textbook picking to form an issue. In fact, the 6 issues raised, in my opinion, is more a precursor of the manifesto for the 2026. And that is what will be raised. It's like the opposition wanted to cut the monotonous flow of peace and said, you know what? As opposition, if we don't raise something, we are going to be seen as not working. So let's raise 4 grounds and we walk out of parliament. Shrinking civic space, what is the measurement? How do you measure that this space is shrinking? Okay, you have tried to put indicators. Shrinking space, in my opinion, is so wide. We are here in this talk show as a sign of a wide civic space. We are online, we come here, we have never been attacked. Every station, every city or town in Uganda, even a township has a radio where people phone in and talk. Now, the issue of managing gatherings, which has been a kind of fight with the police, is one other thing governed by the law. So, due to the lack of definition and quantification of this civic space, and also knowing the infrastructure availed by government now without interference, in terms of TVs, in terms of newspapers, in terms of radio, I am yet to be convinced, first, by definition of the civic space which is shrinking. How big was it in the first place? That it has now reduced. It is undefined, it is unqualified, and yet we have, to the contrary, issues and factors that show that the civic space is actually very wide. So wide in the online digital world that even what you discuss here is in America. I wonder who is in America who sees Sarah's freedom of speech and would wonder, I'm in my comfort zone, or I'm struggling to make ends meet in some state in California. But back home, they're saying the civic space is shrinking. But they're talking from Tinder. What is this shrinking space? It just doesn't add up. It doesn't add up at all.
2 or 3 months ago, the leader of the NUP party was returning into the country, and he organized to meet his supporters government did not allow him.
That
This
is a
was his
shrinking
space to
space.
meet his political supporters.
That is okay, you are now taking me fact by a case-by-case basis. The issue of Honorable Bobby Wine coming back from abroad is an issue that was even discussed by their own people. It came up here. It was valued by NUP themselves that we already have our people in jail. We are again going to organize. They said 1 million people. That is what they had said, 1 million. So government said we cannot manage a crowd control of a peaceful 1 million people. Even if you gather all the police from Kotido, Arua, Kobok, and everywhere, okay? Even if you brought police on the payroll, all the police on the payroll, and said, please, NUP 1 million people have a right to walk here. You can't control them that they're moving, they'll not disturb other road users, markets, goods on the roadside, traffic, and all that. So government said, no, we can't control this crowd of 1 million. But even the opposition, in terms of the NUP, we are saying that if we bring this, and we cannot control our 1 million, suppose wrong people enter us and they cause chaos, should we lose lives? So the decision was made in security interest that rather than by now, if that had happened and wrong people had entered, we would now be towing the narrative that when Bobby Wine was coming back, so-and-so was killed, so-and-so was killed, because there was a possibility of wrong people entering there to damage the government. That is why a preemptive move was made and Bobby Wine was taken home. And to date, we don't have a narrative of, you know, when Bobby Wine was coming, this happened, 20 people died. Would you like that story? Which one is better? To listen to that story now or to listen to the story that he was taken home? I prefer the story was taken home than the story now that 20 people died when he came.
Thank you so much, Major Awich. Dr. Robert, the minister says the fact that the NRM government allowed Uganda to go from the movement system to multi-party system of politics is evidence enough that they are committed to having a free and fair civic space in this country. What is your view?
In fact, that statement is very true. And I really think the minister tried his best to try to explain. And he looks at a number of things, of course, sometimes mixing them, mixing issues of election with the issues of freedom of speech, freedom of association, and so on and so forth. So he gives us a bowl of katogo so that we can choose what we want to eat, whether beans or cassava or take the soup and so on. In fact, this whole thing started when we allowed that now people can compete with the General Museveni. I think at that time he was Lieutenant General in 1996. Before election, indeed there was freedom. People would speak whatever they wanted here. But now there was a stake of State House going away. And you remember the first ugly thing was a candidate being beaten in Rukungiri. Kawanga Semogerere was beaten there. And I remember the Electoral Commission chairman saying, and I think he is the only Electoral Commission chairman who has been serious. I remember him vowing that if a candidate is beaten again, I will declare this election null and void. And I think from Rukungiri...
Who is that one? How will be?
That then, no, it was, by the way, that's why sometimes you don't even believe in these. It was Kasuja, simple Kasuja. Kasuja decreed that if you beat again a candidate, I will declare, I will cancel these elections. And that's how it stopped. So that election from Rukungiri, there was no beating of people and abusing of rights. Come 2006, 2001. 2001, there was a notorious man called Kakoza Mutale, of the Kalangala Action Plan. This man, and I am now talking about things I have seen with my own eyes. I am not reading from any script like the Major is alleging. Kakoza Mutale was moving around, caning people of the opposition. At that time, there was
The movement bus.
in the movement bus with a group of people guarding him with soldiers. I was already working. I was already a working person. I was in town here, and Kakoza Mutale was caning anybody who was putting on red shirt. If you by bad luck, because at that time blue was not yet there, it was reform agenda, something like, and escorting those ones in yellow. So he beat up people. He reached one day there. In fact, in Kubiri, he beat up somebody, and there was a commotion. A lorry came and rammed into people, supporters of Kiiza Besigye, and a number of them died there. In Uganda here, people forget very fast. And I think Major Awich was alive. Kakoza Mutale rocked 2006. Kakoza Mutale was joined by Tumukunde. They beat up people in elections. In my village, I come from Kakira in Jinja. A young man was shot. Up to days, my friend, he's one-legged. He was shot by soldiers who were escorting the Tumukunde in that place. Because, you know, these town places seem to have people who oppose. Of course, the worst was 2021, where we watched, you and me watched like a movie. People were shooting into the public in town here. I thought I was watching a movie. These movies we used to watch of Commando, and people were being shot. As a result, people were declared dead, including a woman, a poor woman who was hawking or vending food. Now, the minister says that there is no problem. Indeed, the minister is the one with the problem. You know, sometimes when you are defending difficult things, you are in a very big problem. The truth is, as Major says, if we come here and we are discussing, the way we are discussing human rights, lack of freedom, nobody will care about you. And she implored Sarah, I want Sarah to risk, to now risk today. Get out of this room with a van and a loudspeaker, put on a beret, and start campaigning for NUP in Ntinda here. Just move from Ntinda. By the time you reach Kamwacha, if you are lucky, you will be heading to Chitalia or dead. So the issue here, which the minister does not talk about, is the intolerance of anybody who tries to threaten the power of General Yoweri Museveni. That one will be dealt with. As you are aware, I don't know whether that minister is not aware, Bobby Wine and his group are on a ban. They cannot have any rally, music show in Kampala or business area. Now remember, our business area of Kampala is the one with the highest population in terms of a single town. There is no town in Uganda which has a population like the one in Kampala here. Now in Kampala here, Bobby Wine cannot organize a music show to just go and sing his songs. It is not possible. Let alone have a rally here in the business center. And the argument has been, oh, you know, you are going to destabilize business. I don't know which one, and all those things. Number two, you see, there is a very big problem when you read such statements. In Kampala here, you remember even the army had to outlaw an attire by a political party. You can imagine just people putting on a red beret and moving around. You try. Young men are suffering out here. I don't know whether the minister has no people to see. You are found with a red beret in some places. You are bundled in a vehicle and charged in a military court because they argue that that beret looks like a UPDF attire. Because a UPDF attire is known, is gazetted. It has a crown. For example, if you look at the cape of a major or a captain or whoever has a crown. Has a crown.
Yeah.
Let me give you an example. If you check, how come somebody has not arrested Tamale Mirundi with their yellow beret? Because I have seen also yellow in the army. There are some army officers who put on that yellowishy thing. How come those ones have not been arrested? How come that one has not been gazetted or degazetted as something that look like an army thing?
Some information, Doctor.
Yes.
The minister who read a report which of excuses is the same man who was a CDF who commissioned the gazetting of that army attire and that then saw the arrest of
So it really scares me. You see, for me, when I was growing up as a young man, I used to make a gun, something that looks like a gun, and I used to call it a gun, but it would not shoot. It did not have any quality of a gun. So today, I think if I made that thing, I would be arrested that you are carrying a gun. Now, lastly, as I end, you see, civic rights are not measured by people writing in newspapers, by people sitting on talk shows and speaking English the way we are doing. Civic rights is a total sum freedom that is given somebody to express himself the way he or she wants. I'll give you an example. Those who have traveled, and majors, you have traveled. If you go to plot 10 in UK, plot 10, where the Prime Minister of England works from, every morning there are demonstrations there. These ones are demonstrating, like today there must be demonstrating against Israel. Others are demonstrating against, I don't know, weird. If a Ugandan president makes a statement, there are people there demonstrating. The role of the state is to protect those people and give them space to express themselves. So every morning, so I was there, and one time I asked somebody, I was told that there are people who are professional demonstrators. If you have an issue, you go and approach them and you explain to them, and they will be at the parliament or any place, or to Trafalgar Square or any other place to demonstrate. The role of the state in England is to protect them with that space, to give them opportunity to express themselves. And they do that on a daily basis. So that is what a state like Uganda is supposed to do. I agree with the Major that giving protection to 1 million people would have been very difficult. I agree with him. But I also doubt whether Bobby Wine had ability to raise 1 million people.
That's what they say.
Was there an attempt? Was there any attempt of the police in that place to give space to those people and organize them to be there? Because our president of Uganda has a right of going anywhere in Uganda. Because of his powers as the head of state. For example, the other day when he was in Kawempe, he was given protection. Kawempe, you know, is one of the most populous places. He was given protection, and he went to his friend's factory and opened it. Nobody stoned him, nobody touched him. So this country is able to give security to any leader if they so wish. If they so wish. And General Awich is also, Major Awich is also making Ugandans look like riffraffs. Ugandans are not riffraffs. In fact, in East Africa here, Ugandans are the most calm people. What happens here may not happen in Tanzania, may not happen in Kenya. I've been in these countries. For example, in Kenya, you saw during election, wasn't it COVID time? It was COVID time, even in Tanzania. But people were moving, and all sorts of things were happening. Those people there, but because they have a disciplined army, they have a disciplined police, I think the whole election, only 3 people died. Only 3.
I was there.
Only 3 people died. And the ones who died were of accidents.
There is also an MP who shot.
That one was
Yeah.
in fact in Western here.
Yeah.
Shot a person. That was one of the people. But in our country, first of all, the biggest problem which we need to tell the minister, here the police is partisan. It sides with one group. So people look at police as their enemy.
And the army.
Then the army is worse. In fact, the worst thing to do in Uganda is involving the army. I've been following and they say, oh, the army has a right to be called upon, to beef up. This, or the one of Uganda is not beefing up. The army takes over. These days, even it is not the army, but CFC takes over. And once they take over, they do all sorts of things. These drones are managed by CFCs. And the people, unfortunately, Major Awich, you need to tell us, the blame has been that majority of the people who fly these drones are from Movement Secretariat, because they come with the T-shirts of the president and kidnap people. Because I've also seen them. I drive on these roads of Kampala. When they are there, you try you are struggling with your jam. A man rolls the thing down. He's in a T-shirt and he's telling out, "Simama, simama." So what we are saying, we need a country where everybody listens to each other. The minister, indeed, if you say that the minister has a first-class degree of law, it doesn't mean that when you join the army and later become a minister, you lose your conscience. The minister lives in Uganda. He has been seeing these things. Let them just promise us how they are going to resolve these issues. But the issues are there. For us people, we are seeing them. And if the minister is not seeing them, then he's in a wrong office.
Thank you so much. Counsel Eron, the minister says you have members of the NRM in parliament.
Maybe as he comes. The other thing, Major, this is not an opposition issue. The opposition are only representing a group which has nobody to talk for them. I don't think the opposition is representing a matter that is coming from Rwanda or any other place. It is just that it is them who have brought it up. But very many people have complained about the same things. The civil society has complained. The Human Rights Commission, which is a government agency, has complained. The media complains every day. In fact, the media severally has even put a ban of working with the police and other people because they are not allowed to do their work. So, Major, this is not an issue of the opposition. It is an issue of Ugandans, especially who don't have a say. It is just that the opposition have spoken on their behalf.
Thank you so much, Doctor. Counsel Eron, the NRM is in parliament, FDC, independents, special interest groups, including representatives for the UPDF. And according to him, this is an indicator that the civic space is free, wide, and well. What is your view of that?
Yeah, so I can confirm that the minister's statement, unfortunately in parliament, is a pack of lies, as far as it is a lazy and failed attempt to respond to opposition accusations that there is shrinking civic space. And I clearly said and repeat that even the pastor like Mugisha Monto of AN Alliance for National Transformation was not allowed to take his transformational voice on radio stations, including in Hoima. So if a presidential candidate cannot access a media house
after paying,
or even if he had not paid, is that civic space shrinking or is it expanding? As I speak right now, I cannot, without paying money to some app called VPN, access my Facebook. And in fact, my Facebook presence has suffered. But I have an alternative of Twitter. Not everyone has that alternative. He may have an alternative of TikTok by his age or by his look, but not everyone is there. I need freedom to choose TikTok, Twitter, and Facebook, because through Facebook, we use it to spread a lot of messages. But leave alone us spreading those civic messages, many businesses stood on their presence on Facebook. Unemployed people trying to leave that category through businesses of boutiques advertising their merchandise, clothes on Facebook. There is a point of closure of NGOs and civic society organizations that are either working in natural resources or governance sector. That was not an indication of civic space that is expanding, but it was one of civic space that was shrinking. Just go to Parliament itself and see its vociferous speaker gagging members of Parliament, even first of all in the House itself, but also they are not free to post anything that is critical of that Speaker of Parliament. And you know the Speaker of Parliament is part of government. You cannot criticize on your social media. No, she will drag you into a parliamentary committee, accuse you, give evidence against you, even give a timeline within which you must be apprehended, like he did to the Cartoon Committee, relative to the Zake matter. So the gagging of even members of parliament. That's why you saw members took long, opposition members took long to raise these issues. I think for over 2 years, we have been demanding, you are in parliament, use that space the way EFF, the way the South Africa's economic freedom fighters use it, to be active, because it is only in the parliament where you can actually do activism. Why? I can't, the group of us here, if we go right now on the city square and hold placards demanding that Museveni should step down, we cannot come back here. If we are lucky, we'll end up in some CMI, then after a week, into SIU, then after that, we go to Chitaja. There is a whole process.
Yeah. If we announced on this show that we are going to march to Mpinda, we cannot pass that corner without being arrested.
However, if someone called for help, that they have thugs have attacked me, if we can even do another experiment, one calls that they are still here who are attacking my household, and another one say that I don't know what Vestige and Bobby Wine and a group of young people don't have freedom to peacefully assemble in public spaces with critical messages against this government. And that is the biggest indicator of shrinking civic space. In a country whose civic space is not shrinking, you don't need police permission to do peaceful rallies, because it has reached a level whereby, I think he talked about music concerts. Bobby Wine is, if he didn't have alternative means of, if he hadn't joined politics when he was already aware of, I think he would do. I mean, they have stopped his career, and you know, you think you're stopping Bobby Wine, but he has a band, he has other employees, so his music career, by government decree and declaration, has been put to an end. That's very unfortunate, not only as a way of stopping a source of income, but for artists as a source of fulfillment and as a source of entertainment. It is completely unfortunate. And I want to relate this point to the point of other artists, writers. As long as you're critical of government, you're not safe in this country. Indeed, may I report to the NRM that some of our clients are fleeing the country because you cannot satirize, you cannot compare people with some parts of their private parts without leaving the country. Of course, some people might be annoyed. It might even be a sin. But the government does not exist to stop us from to enable us to go to heaven, or to tell us we should choose by whether we want hell or heaven. That's not government business. So people who use unflattering language, whether it is uncultural and so on and so forth, should not be living in Germany. They should be living here with us so that we correct them where we think they are wrong. But because of the shrinking civic space, they are being exiled and forced into exile. Indeed, recently, I was forced to go to police. I spent a whole day on police trying to get summons for Spire because he had drawn a certain cartoon, and somehow police got interested because the government only wants to practice sectarianism. You are not, it doesn't allow you to talk about it. And for me, that is very unfortunate. Vimeza, who remembers Vimeza? Right now, we don't have Vimeza. And they didn't just wilt into oblivion organically. They were banned by government. So, you don't have Facebook, you don't have Vimeza, politicians can't access radio stations, writers are not in the country, they have to leave in order to write. You have a country where people cannot abuse the first family. Is that space shrinking, or is it not contracting? I am happy. At some point, the major alluded to rallies inconveniencing business, traffic, markets, and all sorts of things. That is not a reason to stop a rally. The only reason for stopping a rally in a democratic country is if all of it turns violent. But whereby in a rally there are some rogue elements, you are supposed to identify those rogue elements and deal with them in accordance with our laws, accordance with criminal laws and other laws. If someone defames you, you are supposed to use the civil defamation to get compensation from them. The way Kadaga and Tabova, the way who else, they sued and got, the way even how Museveni did recently, suing Monitor for defamation. Luckily, they settled that case, and Museveni promised to build an NRM building, but he has not. I think NRM people should demand of Museveni, where is the money which you got from Daily Monitor, around 300?
You got some money?
Yes, recently. A consent, you made the Monitor cough. Of course, that is, there are things they call slap suits. To store a suit to make you keep quiet, shut you. You are a professor from Kyambogo. There is some kind of suit they can put on you so that you don't come here and give this speech. That's what next time you come here, you're speaking like a major. So there are suits that are meant to silence people. They are called slap suits. Suits against activism and advocacy and so on and so forth. That kind of Museveni defamation suit against Monitor was like that. And of course, over the years, Monitor is still independent and doing a good job, but it has reduced on its independence. It's not the Monitor of Andrew Mwenda actually. True. And Obo and this FDC man is called who? Yes. Wafura. But more for Wafura. Yeah, it's not the same Daily Monitor. So through tactics of twisting the Aga Khan Foundation and suits and all manner, they have also reduced its tempo. So I think I'll have to come back later, but I want us to I want to explain that traffic control is not a reason for stopping, for police to stop a rally. If in a democracy we expect to be inconvenienced, indeed, whenever there is a march of NRM people, they stop traffic. In fact, if you don't even need to be a march, because when Museveni wants to do a showbiz of anti-corruption, because in Uganda there is no war against corruption from government, it's not there. But when they want to make a pretense of to walk around a march, they want to walk, and they will make sure no one else walks around, and they are walking, and that will be with police guidance. But for a rally to just move in town, so there is a price for democracy, and things like inconvenience, a one-day market disruption, those are the price we should pay in a democracy to ensure that democracy exists. Because we cannot have a democracy where people cannot march just because there will be traffic issues, just because some people will not be happy, just because some people are taking children to school. Those are important. But if we need democracy, then we should stomach those inconveniences. But the police and the military should not use it as reasons, because those reasons are not illegal. They are illegal. And luckily, even here in Uganda, the courts have concurrently clarified that position. And we want and we urge the police to follow it. The other point that we want to clarify here is the militarization of the Ugandan state. It militates against civic space. People cannot organize peacefully in the private sphere outside government when even the Ministry of Internal Affairs, which is directing police, is militarized. Internal Affairs and Immigration, go to Google, you will see director this, the military only from level of, even at the level of commissioner, just immigration, militarized. Police itself militarized. So when you have a militarized state institutions, they look at any criticism as adui.
Yes, enemy.
Enemy. So what do military people do to adui? They shoot. So when you see people shooting at citizens, it's because they think they are adui. They have been trained. You know, they get a contingent from Somalia and they put it here. What is it going to do to Somalia? In fact, one time they got a commander from Somalia and made him deputy IGP. May his soul rest in peace. These things are wrong.
The Lion of Mogadishu.
Yes. The Lion. Imagine, not only from Mogadishu, but a Lion. You put it in Kampala during an election season. Honestly. So the Lion eats it, hunts it. So you are telling the Lion that this is a jungle, this is your territory, mark it with your crows. And what crows are they? Guns, batons,
and just to give you information, I said this last time. This business of just transferring a soldier, RO or RA, into a police officer is a very bad thing. Because police is trained to do policing work. And policing work, you apprehend, you disperse, you advise. By the way, police is not every time that they come to you, they must arrest you. Sometimes they just advise you and warn you. But this soldier, as he has said, is used to, he's dealing with adui. A small thing, he wants to fight with you. You have seen now these soldiers who are traffic officers. They don't know how a vehicle moves. He wants you to pass, and he's telling you, pass very fast, else I will slap you. You slap me for driving my car? What have I done? So these guys, are they given any training to police before they become police officers? So for me, I feel that yes, the law allows, Major normally likes the law. The law allows that you can call them to back up. In
situations of emergencies.
But first, you need to train them. Are they police officers? Like that one has just come from war. If somebody has come from war, he's supposed to first go for psychological therapy. You now take him to deal with the people. And you saw what he did.
So on the point, of backing up, I wanted to clarify because people misunderstand it. The military coming in civilian affairs, first of all, the military is supposed to be subordinate to civilian authority. That is the starting point. Then secondly, the principle of the military is not to define society. It is to defend it. That is the philosophical grounding of the military. You defend society, not to define it. But when they put the military to policy-making organs and the implementation of policy, they are defining society, how society should be. If you put the military in the police, put the military in the parliament, before long we shall have military in the judiciary, then there was even a suspicion that Kavuma, the deputy chief justice, had some military inclination, but we shall investigate that. So, but I am telling you, under what circumstances is the military called in? It is in two circumstances spelled out by the Constitution. One is the natural disaster, and another one is emergency. The police cannot just call military because they are coming to my house to arrest Eron.
But they never call them. The military brings itself.
Thank you so much, Counsel Eron, for that elaborate. But since you talk about the military, it takes us to the second point of the people that died during the 2021 general elections, the riots that happened. And part of the minister's statement says the investigations done post-riots established the...
The word riot is stigmatizing and misleading. These were demonstrations. Aspects of them might have been violent, but doesn't mean they were not the demonstrations. Most of these people, in fact, these were the most spontaneous demonstrations after the Kayunga demonstrations. By spontaneous, I mean what? No one mobilized these people. One person was arrested in Jinja and other groups started. Like we hear that something has happened somewhere and we start from here demonstrating. Do we have guns here except one person? So can you say that we are violent? So the thing of painting a demonstration, it is a repeated mistake. Every time people demonstrate, they call it riots. But a riot is a stigmatizing language. I don't want media people to fall for the trap set by the minister and the government to call every demonstration a riot. No, these people are demonstrating. Demonstration is underscored by Article 29 of the Constitution and 38 of the Constitution. People have to organize and are free to organize, and also they have that personal liberty to do it. It is lawful as long as it is peaceful. The only condition you need to meet to organize a rally, a march, a procession is you be non-violent. Be non-armed. You get me?
Thank you so much, Counsel.
So the military killed the people.
I want to engage.
And you represented
on a different topic. Unfortunately, our time is fast spent. And for the benefit of the viewer, actually, we do not have guns in the studio, maybe outside the studio. But the minister goes on to say that the investigations done post the riots established the cause of death and inquiry. Without conclusive findings about the circumstances of each death and injuries, save for AUX number that one, a soldier, Mustafa Sali, charged and convicted for killing of Mutasa Ibrahim on 18th November 2020 at Wandegea Police Station, and RA 172962, Mugisha Augustine, charged for the killing of civilian Grace Walungama and fellow LDU Sengoma Hussein at Lunguja on 18th. These were each sentenced to 35 years and life imprisonment, respectively, and they are serving their sentences at Chitalia Prison. Dr. Sar, this is evidence that government, the military, is doing something about the military people that committed the offenses.
Well, before I get to that, I want to respond to issues on the previous debate. There is a statement that says government allowed multipartyism. That's wrong. The Constitution under Article 68 says Ugandans will choose a political system of governance they want to. Ugandans chose to go multi-party in a referendum. It is not the government that allowed. So that is also a manipulation. And by a lawyer, that is really erroneous. For a lawyer to state that the government allowed multi-partyism, it does not have power.
It facilitated the process.
No. The Constitution said after 10 years, they will ask the people whether they want to go multi-party or remain in the movement. And the people did in a referendum, chose how they want to be governed. So it is not the government that allowed. The other issue that I want to respond to in the previous debate is the issue of Bobi Wine and the 1 million march. The funder which says that security is out and so they can't manage a 1 million procession. Under public order management rules in a democratic society, you then interface with the organizers and share options. If 1 million people cannot fit at the airport, maybe you agree or tell the organizers that you gather 1 million people in Nachuvubo. Go with 50 or 100. Pick up your leader and come and address the others in Nachuvubo. That's what public management means in a democratic society. But it is not rudimentary, go grab somebody on an international space, which Uganda does not govern. The airport is governed by international regulations. You go and arrest actually somebody needs to, government of Uganda. Maybe if the airport then is used as a trap to arrest people, then maybe it should be degraded from an international airport. Because that's international space.
To a military airfield.
Yes, let it be a military airfield. And people know they are landing in a military airfield and they prepare accordingly. So I thought I wanted to make those two clarifications. On the issue of November 18, 19, 2020 killings, that is the extrajudicial killing. Government admitted a number of 54 in their report and publishing cause of death, bleeding, what. Of course, when you do postmortem, you'll say somebody died of overbleeding. But what is the cause of overbleeding? It's a gunshot. So, but the other sources put the death about 100. The government only put their death at 54. Out of the 54, the minister explains 2 deaths by 2 soldiers. The best investigation that was done, but of course it's not that the government cannot do an investigation. There is the BBC documentary of 3 killings in Kampala, where journalists sat and followed up 3 deaths out of the many. Government has all the data through CCTV coverage in Kampala.
You see, Doctor, according to this statement, the minister says government cannot rely on footage given by
I'm coming.
the BBC.
I'm coming. I'm saying these are people with no access to CCTV coverage. Kampala is under CCTV coverage. This CCTV coverage is controlled by government at Naguru. All they needed, if they wanted to, is pick up a recording of those 2 days. And they will see who. Of course they know. Police deployments, army deployments are done by their commanders. They know who was in the city. They know who shot who. They know the people who murdered Ugandans. And maybe that was the instruction they are given. Because failure to reprimand means that this was the command order. These people were not killed by Congolese or Nigerians. They were killed by police and the army of Uganda. Only 2 people were punished for 2 deaths. We have had the case concluded of Mukisa, the mother who went to court, a young boy who was shot in Down after closing their shop down near
Nachtiyo, that's my client. Actually.
Yes. So we have now justice for 3 people out of 54 families. We have had people, the statement claims that these were rioters. The lecturer, a retired lecturer of Kyambogo, was shot going to ATM to withdraw money. A primary 7 child in Kawempe was shot after his parents sent him to buy airtime. So many people. The first death, a woman who was serving food. In which riot was she? Was she rioting with her basket of food for her clients?
The president gave an explanation that these were stray bullets.
That's nonsense. In the same statement, he actually said that they are not stray bullets. You don't shoot. You don't aim to shoot and then claim this is a stray bullet. In the same statement, for the first time, he said that the excuse of stray bullets should end. Isn't he the commander of the armed forces?
He is.
He said the excuse of stray bullets should end. In that same statement, when he ordered an investigation, a report of which was presented in Parliament. So which stray bullets? In addition, I know a lot of civic space has been vulgarized by the army. It's important for citizens to know that in a situation of managing unarmed civilians, what should be used are rubber bullets and batons. But the army here uses live bullets to intentionally murder unarmed civilians. Management of public crowds, it should be rubber bullets and they shoot in the air. That is the professional way of managing demonstrations, of managing riots, of managing unarmed civilians. But the NRM government, which some people call a junta, and maybe rightly so, uses live bullets made to murder people in civilian management.
Thank you, Doctor. Major Awich, perhaps those documents will disprove Dr. Sarah here, but she says the army is not supposed to use live bullets. You people come with machine guns on the streets. and there is no justice for these people.
Yeah, I was trying to look for standard operation procedures. I think I left it because it was part of the attachment that was given in Parliament to show that when the army is in operation, there are do's and do nots. And this includes briefings and debriefings. So the army and the army are strictly to
Briefly, let's head into a very short break and you will pick up your point after the break. Thank you for keeping it the Citizens Church on Civic Space TV. We are heading into a very short break. We shall be right back.
National Water and Sewage Corporation is committed to providing cost-effective, clean, safe and reliable quality water and sewage solutions in urban centers across Uganda. National Water and Sewage Corporation reaffirms its commitment to 100% service coverage, geographical expansion, infrastructure development, water quality, pro-poor initiatives, customer care and stakeholder engagement, catchment and water source protection. Be a water hero. Pay your bills to zero balance. Report all leaks, busts, and illegal water connections to enable us serve you better. Reach us through our toll-free numbers on 0800 200 977 or 0800 300 977. You can also communicate with us through any of our online platforms or visit the National Water and Sewage Corporation office nearest to you. This message is brought to you by National Water and Sewage Corporation.
Welcome back from that short break. It is the Citizens Church on Civic Space TV. I am Phillip Muliisa. Today we are still looking at the significance of the boycott of Parliament by opposition legislators, but also later we shall look at COP28 in Dubai. In studios, I have retired Major Awich Pollar from the NRM, Counsel Eron Kiiza, Dr. Robert Ojambo, and Dr. Sarah Bireete. Major Awich, I want to start with you. The NRM is using machine guns, soldiers from Somalia in the streets to manage civilians, and you say civic space is open. Is that a fair statement?
Which NRM?
The NRM government.
Yes, then to be clear, because you risk a confusion of NRM party. Okay, it is NRM government, right? I concede that. I just wanted clarity, because it is us, the party, who makes a manifesto to the people and market to the people, and people vote. When people vote us, the party, with our party candidate, when we win, we form a government. So it is good for the views to understand. Otherwise,
what's the difference?
The difference is that there's a party, which is the ideologue, and then the government, which is we have a principal-agent relationship. We are the principal, government is the agent. But if you don't make it clear, you may think everybody from plot 10, yellow, is carrying a gun and beating people. So we just need that clarity. Otherwise, if I go for election as a party, you already bias people against me as a party. So the difference is there. Now, your question revolves around all these issues that we have been saying. As you know, I am from the ruling party, and I've got so many issues that I need to respond to. I can't respond to all of them, but I'll try to mention, then crystallize on your question.
Please.
First of all, there was an issue of NRM does not give rights. Of course, we uphold and protect as a government, and government is a big duty bearer in protecting and promotion of human rights, including putting institutional frameworks like human rights to carry out actually human rights education and awareness. So it is still our duty, and we protect it. We put and guarantee institutions like the court. Government has to look for money, recruit judges, put an independent court to protect rights. So it is no doubt that government promotes rights. There is the issue of missing person that we kept missing. I hope I will say it in my concluding statement. About yellow coffee in the army, I'm not aware about it. I'm a retired senior army officer. I have not seen a yellow attire in the army, especially coffee, the type that looks like that of Tamale Mirundi. Drivers of drones from NRM Secretariat, no, that should be dismissed with contempt. We don't have drivers from Secretariat. In fact, Secretariat is such a small nucleus Secretariat of the party. We are like a party, as you know, is like a company of shareholders. So the shareholders form a small body to manage. So we are the managers. We are, in other words, civil servants of the party, and we are few. And yet we have a very large mass party. On registry, we have 11 million party members. We have a registry which is even digital. But still, these 11 million people are managed by small groups. So we don't have drivers.
Moderator, can I ask you a question?
Mm.
You know, for us, we raise our information from people. There have been these videos going around where they're interviewing people who got lost. And out of 18 out of 18, we are saying people putting on NRM shirts with the head of the president came with the vehicle, picked so and so, and went with them. Who are these people, since you are from the Secretariat?
Your guess is as good as mine, but that does not mean that whoever does that is from Secretariat. Suppose he was a party official, say from some other place, or suppose he was a wrongdoer who was just put on NRM materials to do harm. So even if he was a party official, but not from Secretariat, but they could also be a wrong person putting on. For example, recently when we had, I think, Museveni Awoma, some people put on NRM yellow colors.
Museveni is food now.
There was a music launch.
Music concert.
So some people came putting on yellow party uniform, so to say. On Ginger Road, they attacked a Japanese who was an expert in designing to stop traffic light, and he was killed, and they took his things. Now it became a big issue, like NRM, the one who killed it. How people move from Colorado? So there's a risk of people, and that's why we're saying even the 1 million march, we were worried for Nupe that even wrong people who are not Nupe.
So what were the alternatives? Under public management standards, if you were worried of 1 million people on the airport road, what alternatives were given?
Now, I listen to you, you don't want to listen to me.
Major,
I listen to you, don't listen to me. I'm just giving an example that while from Kololo, from a movement function, wrong people can enter. I am saying, even on a new function, or even DP, or even UPC function, you risk having wrong people purporting to be members of those, and they cause chaos.
Major, every year,
I am the only victim here when it's presenting who get interfered with. When others are presenting,
you are protected and they will not intervene in time. Every year we have over 2 million people gathered at Namugongo to celebrate the Mother's Day. Government has not stopped this function.
And they walk from all over Uganda.
And they are friends.
Okay, I will answer that. But for the flow of my thing, I just wanted to say it is not true that whoever comes driving a drone or a taxi in a yellow attire is specifically from plot 10, Chadondo Road. No, that's not true.
Okay.
The professor says it is not an issue of opposition but Ugandans. We agree, human rights is a right for us all, and it has no colors, it has no parties. But in specific reference that the minister is responding to who raised. And that is why his statement is addressed like, report, response to issues raised in the leader of opposition's statement. It is not even raised by, but in the leader of opposition statement. So we have to make an address. You have to guide on who you are responding to. But otherwise, matters of human rights, we all know it is all matters for all of us. So that is the position. Shrinking space again. In the submission about shrinking space, we need to differentiate two things. The normal government position or day-to-day operation and the presidential elections. Many of the issues that came up here are issues that came up during presidential election. Remember this presidential election, some opportunists went to Museveni and said, you know what, there's corona, you just cancel this election. let us look some legal loophole and do it. Museveni said, no, election is election, we must do it. However, it was such a uniqueness of Corona. Now, the shortcomings that came with because of the uniqueness of Corona situation. Now, many of the shrinking space debate that is coming up, this and this happening, this so-and-so was stopped from here, this rally was stopped from here. That was it. But I want somebody to strictly stand and differentiate occurrences during the unique presidential campaign of Corona and occurrences during the normal functioning of NRM government and said, this is what you do.
How was the beating of journalists attributable to coronavirus?
Major, you can continue.
Oh dear, I'm a victim, not a perpetuator. I'm a victim of being restricted. I'm not a perpetuator. Now, and by the way, that is the problem we have. NRM is a victim of human rights abuse. I have overput this example. If you think NRM is the perpetuator, take two people, one in yellow t-shirt, another one in red, drop them in one again. You will see who will be abused. We have never on record been seen like to have abused anybody. These two people, one in a movement t-shirt, the other one is a noob. We are the one abused. So we are the victims all the time. And because we're in power, we are like a man who is married to a wife. Even if his wife beats him, if he has to come out, they'll say, you are the man. Do you know that there are many men who are suffering quietly? So because we are in government, even we are victimized, we are penalized, we are abused. In all ways, we are forced to keep quiet because we're in government. We are the victims. We are not perpetuators. And you will see in many other incidents. Counsel has tried to qualify is what he calls a shrinking space, but again, I said many of them are mixed up with issues that are raised up during presidential campaign. There's the issue of money for Museveni from the NRM. That money is Museveni's money. He could choose to do what he wants with it. Could choose to drink it, he could choose to, because he is the one who should monitor. However, on his own volition, he chose to give the money to Secretariat. And the aspect of building a party office is a mismatch of flow of information. It's us at the party Secretariat who sat in top management and said, this money Museveni has given us, what do we do with it? It is us who agreed that we shall build a party district office. And we prefer the Luero because it is our genesis. So Museveni otherwise gave the money. He did not even tell us what to do with the money. We could choose to eat it. But it is top management which sat in a meeting and resolved that this money is historical. It is donated up by the party chairman. So let us build an office. Then we said, which office? We said, let us zero on Luero. And we are going to do it.
Is this money still available on the accounts?
Yes. You want to audit us?
Thank you so much.
It is there. Now, military everywhere. The military aspect, especially serving army officers, was actually a reaction, not a proaction. It was a reaction because many projects were failing. For example, Operation Wealth Creation. You tell somebody to develop, to just deliver seeds or seedlings. Our friends were not delivering seedlings. So we thought that the civilian civil servants. So we tell the civilians that go and take seeds to farmers. They couldn't. So it became as a response that since there is this bureaucracy and a failure to develop this, we know in the army they will follow order. If you are a major in a particular district and you are ordered to take seedlings, we know our soldiers will do it. So, and that is how the army started to come in. But otherwise, many soldiers, including me, in a party institution, I'm a retired army officer. I hope if I'm appointed a judge, you don't want to be seen as a militarization of the judiciary. I'm retired. I have my rights as a civil person. But the point is, the militarization of institutions like agriculture, it was a response. We cried as a government and said, even mere taking seedlings cannot be taken. Take soldiers to take these seedlings. That is how the army came in to cure such problems. Of course, the element of a gun, you see, with the atmosphere, the peace and tranquility ushered in, why would we have a gun in this room?
But why do you need live bullets to manage civilians?
Why would we have it here in this room?
Governance?
Because of the peace and tranquility issue.
Information, Mr. Moderator. With the peace and tranquility in the country, why do you need live bullets to manage civilians participating in their governance? Not rubber bullets.
That is why I was saying, I tried to look for it here. It is in the attached document the minister gave to Parliament. As I said, when you are answering this kind of questions, you don't only answer on a case by case like what has happened to Kelo or Opeo or Dongo. You give institutional accountability that for this, if it will happen, or to avoid this happening, this is what you do institutionally. Standard operation orders to say when you are there, don't use the live ammunitions. There are situations where that instructions provide. If, for example, the life of the security officer is at stake, because there are some people who aim at killing, and many officers have been killed, and men, you know that. So that standard operation procedures indicate that. But otherwise, the bigger part of it is restrain civilian from doing this, restrain, except this very exceptional situations where use of arms is allowed, and it is contained in that instrument. You want to paraphrase your question again? Because I had to go through all these issues that had come up. Okay? And I said that your question was answered in various issues that had come up.
Maybe the legal aspect of proportional force. Do you think the army uses proportional force in managing civilians?
Is that the dictionary use? Proportional or reasonable?
The force must be proportional to the threat. So what threat do they face?
That is the reasonable force I was saying. If the life of the men and women or the person executing the duty is at risk, that is when it's supposed to use the arms. And even then, it is detailed.
Mr. Moderator.
Major, a lady transporting food to her client, how is she a threat to a police officer or an armed officer?
And that is where there's the element of a stray bullet that the president talked about, but it happened. Now, one thing is, in the minister's report, is it talking of 54 or 56?
56.
56. Sarah was talking of 54. It is 56. In the minister's report of 56 people who died. By the way, government is not saying 56 people were killed by the state. Government was saying death occurred. Now, the general thinking is that when you said 56 people died this time, they are saying the 56 people were killed by the army.
Okay, so no, they died of malaria.
The ones which were killed by the army. And I kept on giving this example, especially the Wandegea case. The ones which were killed by the army and soldiers were identified, they were punished by life sentence and 35 years. And still the army has even left the door open to say to date, and it is carried in the minister's report, that if you know of any of these who were killed by the army, bring evidence, we prosecute.
Major,
how comes we prosecuted those
people were killed by stray bullets? Where did they come from? It's in the minister's report.
Stray bullets can come from two sources. The main source of stray bullet can be from the state officers who are working, okay? But also remember, we have repeatedly said that in this kind of situation, wrong people entered. Now, there is also a possibility of bullets coming from somewhere else. But the people who were seen carrying guns at that time were state actors. So those are the first suspect of the stray bullets. But we can't rule out from others. But I repeat that even in the minister's statement, the minister is saying, fellow citizens, if you have evidence that any of these people are killed by a soldier you know, bring, we prosecute. After all, we have record of prosecuting and sentencing to life imprisonment, to 35 years, and they're in Kitala. You can even visit them if you want.
Thank you so much, Major, for that. And I want to come back to Dr. Sarah here briefly. On the basis of this report, do we then see members of the opposition return to Parliament?
No, the opposition said they will respond to the statement.
Yesterday they attended.
Oh no, yes, and they said they will respond to the statement on Tuesday. Whether they've attended today or to today's proceedings, I'm not aware. Whether they respond on Tuesday and remain in the House or boycott again, demanding for more answers, we are yet to see. But to respond to the other human rights issues, especially the case of missing persons, the minister said when they went to NIRA data, they traced 9 out of the 18. I don't know whether government is aware that not all 45 million Ugandans have national IDs. I'm sure they have that data of people they've issued the IDs and of those they've not. We have so many people who have failed to trace IDs, who were adults at the time IDs were issued. I think they were issued around 2014, 2015, because they are now expiring. So we have people who have failed to get IDs. We have people whose IDs were returned because of errors on the IDs. We have so many Ugandans who cannot now access banking services because of IDs. And the government has data. So if government was issuing IDs and now we have issued IDs to everybody, people who were not 16 then, and now they are adults, because this is now 8 years of IDs, 9, because IDs are expiring next year. People who were not 16 years after the 9 years, how many have IDs? Because the rule was then 16 and above. So to say that because your data does not exist in NIRA, therefore you don't exist, is really laughable. The second issue that the minister brought out that is very laughable is the issue of saying unwitnessed kidnaps. And then he mentioned Kisembo, Chivaramira, and Kajumba, Kisembo, and Chivarama, that their disappearances were not witnessed. So as government...
But Nabanja witnessed one of them.
Yeah, Nabanja says, of course, he knows where Bosco Chivarama is. But if you say, because the disappearances were not witnessed, was government passing an announcement that now we are going to kidnap people you go and witness, to use that as an excuse? The other laughable excuse in the report is to say that the number plates of drones are not captured. For me, the person who presented the report, I will press him on the crime scene of kidnaps for 2 reasons. He was the CDF, then for UPDF. These kidnaps were conducted by CMI and SFC. These are branches of the army. So he was the overall commander of people who kidnapped Ugandans. The drones had no number plates. That was the first alarm in the media. Numberless vans are kidnapping Ugandans. He was the presiding officer of the kidnappers. So to put in the report that because number plates are missing, therefore Ugandans were not kidnapped. You know, if it wasn't that Ugandans are very civil, some of these things you don't even know what to do to such people. How do you even put that in the statement? People were even crucifying traffic police for allowing numberless vehicles on the road. So how do you dare then put in a government document that because there are no number plates, therefore it is a lie? Like, who are you fooling?
Thank you so much, Doctor. And it sounds a painful reception of these statements. Dr. Robert, should opposition legislators return to Parliament?
I don't know what they are thinking about because I'm not privy to their preparations of boycott and later what they have decided, but you will hear from them. But for me, I think discussing whether the opposition should go back to Parliament or not is trying to kick the ball out of target. The issues that they were raising, I don't think they are their issues. Yeah. I don't think there is even a member of opposition who has a relative who was kidnapped or killed. These are Ugandans. What you should be asking me is what should we continue doing so that we put pressure on government or the authorities that be to make sure that they tell us about the people. We thought that the LOPC statement was going to enable a system or a process that we would know, for example, where the 18 Awol people are. We would know who killed the so many people who died during that time. The other issues of the fishmongers, those are matters that can be handled later, because I don't want to combine them here, because there are more serious issues of people getting lost, people dying. So the other ones of the Muslim thing, we can handle it on another day. Number one, when it comes to people getting lost, because the LOP was very clear, leader of opposition was very, very clear. They want to know the whereabouts of the 18 missing people. The beauty is that now the government has acknowledged that indeed there are some people missing. At first they were saying this is all a hoax. I would see some lazy government officials explaining on TV, on radio, that some of these people are in Dubai doing Cheyo.
Yeah,
And I was wondering,
but they pass through the
these
airport.
days, Uganda, you can just live like a bird flowing in the air and you disappear. Because I know there is immigration, there are so many processes. For somebody to go out, you must get a visa. And when you are getting a visa, there are processes. So,
And
who
we have international police.
are these guys that the government is alleging that are being said to have disappeared, but they are in Dubai? They needed to tell us because they have the information. They have the information. You cannot leave this country when they don't know you. Even if you escape through Busia or Mutukula or wherever, at one time they will know that somebody passed here. That's why, for example, criminals who try to escape are normally caught on these borders. Recently, this police officer who killed an Indian was caught in Busia trying to escape. So, for me, I really think that on that area, the minister did not give any answer. He left us where we were. For example, he says that they could not get this information because witnesses were not willing to give information, or they could not find them. And
They
so
even dragged NGOs
police,
that they took
police
NGOs.
cannot depend on witnesses. They have the apparatus to find the information. So are they telling me that now these days police bases itself on rumors to do investigations on criminal matters? I thought they have apparatus. They have CID, they have CMI, they have ISO, DISO, MISO, I don't know which one. So I think that the minister was not willing to explain. And I'm very sure some of these people, they know where they have gone. Probably some are dead because they are tortured in these torture chambers. Some might be dead. Some might be in some communicado areas where they keep people, but they don't want to come out that, yes, government is the one which grabbed these people and they probably died, or they have been there all this time. So it was just mukarukaru. Baganda normally says mukarukaru tajabusera. You say, oh, this porridge today, kumbe the porridge is paining you, I mean, is burning you. So on the issue of lost people, no answer. The minister, if I'm to mark, got 0. On the issue of people, how did they die? Because that for me is very, very important. Because we have been castigating Amin here for all this time. We have been castigating Amin that he carried out extrajudicial murders in Uganda. And that has been a very big issue against that gentleman. Today, you are saying 54. And you say when people say 54 or 56 died, you cannot explain 53 of them. You can only explain 3, which you say the people are charged. So should we take this that you have done a very good job? Oh, there is rule of law here. People died. For us, we believe. I tend to believe like Sarah. Some were not even recorded because that was a time of fear. Some people just disappeared. There is a man who was shot in where I stay in Namugongo. A young man had just come with a boda boda. he was chanting Nupu chants. A police van came and he was spreading bullets. The man fell dead. What they did, this one I saw myself. What they did, they just put this boy on a boda and another one sat there dead, and they went to take him to bury in Wuyukwe. Because they were saying if police takes this person, to get him is going to be very difficult. I didn't even know, nobody recorded his name, nobody knew who he was. But they went with him. So many of them were like that. But the state has powers, because if this man is riding a boda, he must be riding a boda that is registered. Now that boda must have been registered somewhere in the boda stage. Yeah. And they know who is riding that boda at that time. They can follow that until they find out who is this person that died. I was watching on TV and I saw a man shooting a police van. But before I go to that, all of you have been watching TV, News Hour or whatever on these various TVs that we watch. How do you think how do you feel when you see a man being arrested by armed men with the kiboko? The man is caned, he falls down, they are still caning him, they put him in a vehicle, they are still caning him, and the major is here telling us that, you see, they follow procedure, soaps. I don't know which type of soap. I don't know whether Kanga, Blue, or Geisha. These things, we see them. People are being beaten, the person has even given up. But they are beating him, some until they collapse and die. So I really want to think that what I said earlier, once you allow the army to do civil policing, you are to see a lot of problems. For example, do you think even the police was happy with some of these things? And you know, during that time, at a police post, there would be a police officer and an army man. Now, does an army man know how to write statements of police? I don't know. So really, our country needs to get back to order. We need to make sure that police is empowered to do police work. If it requires training and employing more people, these LDUs should go and guard our border with the Congo. They should go and do other things. So for me, I think the minister, on explaining the death of the people, he got again 0. Where I saw the minister did very well was when he tried to explain the issue of people being arrested and imprisoned in accordance to denomination or religious belief. I think there he went and got percentages of the people who are in our prisons. He said Muslims are 16%, Catholics are 45%, and the others are this denomination. So that one was not a very serious issue. But for me, I thought that is even because of our population. When you look at our population, that is how the denominations are. And so it is not true. Me, I also don't think that police was arresting basing on religious background. So that one, I saw the minister. What does the minister, for example, explain on the people who have been on charges? I saw him say that they are there in accordance to the law, justice law in Uganda. If you go to Kalangala, people are chanting, Bobby Wine Oye, Bobby Wine Oye. You round them off and take them to a court martial. Really, we need to be idiots to believe that. That you see they are being charged according to... I thought people who are charged there are people who are caught in a military action, or either... Because even robbery, they are not supposed to be charged in a military court martial. Even robbery, which is one of the aggravated robbery, they are supposed to be charged in the high court or somewhere. Now, these guys who are chanting Bobby Wine Oye, he did not explain to us why they are in the court martial. And he says, let's leave that to the Supreme Court to rule whether people should be taken to, for him, as a former CDF, as a lawyer, and a minister right now, because a minister is supposed to protect Ugandans. Unfortunately, this minister looks like a mercenary who has been hired from somewhere to come and defend the government against the people. I saw him. He's not even remorseful that these are Ugandans he's supposed to protect as a minister of internal affairs. He's there to protect all of us, including foreigners in Uganda. But he's there protecting wrongdoers, criminals who were, in my view. So the minister there did not do very well. So whether the MPs should go back to parliament,
on
yes.
that military court-martial of NUP supporters. You know, it's important for the viewers to know that Jamil Mukuru, the former head of ADF, Allied Democratic Forces, is being tried in civilian courts after waging war and terror acts against Ugandans for more than 20 years. The suspected terrorists who killed tourists in Kasese are tried in Nakawa civilian court. But for wearing a cape and supporting Bobo Wine and chanting people power, you are charged in court martial. This is the rule of law according to NRM. They need to understand
Rule by law. So for me, what I want to say, whether the MPs should go back to parliament or not, that is their decision. But for me, what I want to encourage them is that that report, they should throw it in the dustbin and continue demanding. We want to know where their 18 people are. We want to know who killed people during elections, because the way they have explained to us, other than on 3 occasions, they have not explained who killed the other people. We want to know when Ugandans will be allowed to express themselves, and if they are being stopped, by who. So I think, for me, if I was to talk to the MPs, they should get the report, put it in the nearest dustbin, and continue demanding. And also maybe citizens need to support the MPs. Because right now I am seeing there is a sort of analogy being created against the MPs, that you see they are looking for Major here said they are trying to build the 2026 campaign manifesto. You see they are looking for money. You see they want to be voted. You see the minister said it is a ploy to con embassies to give them visas. I think that is outside the point. The point is that they are missing people. There are people who died. Government should come and explain. For example, where are the 18? How can the government fail to explain even one? Even one. They cannot explain. They have the army, they have the police, they have, I don't know, CMI, they have CID and what have you, and they cannot even explain one person. And they tell us, this one is in this prison. They are putting excuses. Or at first, they were lying when the NUP took a list. They were saying that, you see, why we cannot find the identities of these people is because NUP is giving us one name. Now they have both names. They even have the relatives of those people. It has been on video. Everybody has been seeing where they come from, their brothers, their wives. How come they cannot explain even one? So I think the minister gave us a raw deal.
Thank you so much. Counsel Eron, you see, you who is a lawyer, the minister says 9 of the 18 people are not in national data. They are not at NERA. Immigration does not know them. What is the way forward on these people? It means government has given up on them. How do we get them then?
I think the minister needs to ask.
What about the other 9?
He needs to come and tell us whether Ugandans without national IDs are Ugandans or Kenyans. I think there is a role to play when you are in government. If people are not ready to perform their functions, they should resign. But you cannot say that simply because a Ugandan has no national ID or your records show that his details are not captured, therefore that is a response to the fact that the person is missing. To be clear, IDs are not a sign of humanity. They are just a badge of citizenship. And what they said are missing persons. Even if you say they were missing Kenyans, why should it make a difference? The Constitution protects all persons, not just Ugandans. So even if you say they were Americans, you mean Americans are supposed to disappear from Ugandan territory? Do you get me, Philip? So it doesn't matter whether you are a Ugandan, a Rwandan, a Tanzanian. If you're in Ugandan territory, you must be protected. So the point that the suggestion that someone has no citizenship, no card, didn't vote, has no NSSF card, or whatever documentation does not deprive them of their humanity and therefore of the duty of the state to protect them.
Thank you. When you say that, then it tries to indicate that this was negligence from the side of the minister, but also government.
From government, basically, of which the minister attempted to be a mouthpiece. But as we have already said, this report is a lazy but failed attempt to explain the issues it claims to handle.
Do you see any avenues of, say, civil society, people like you, concerned lawyers, suing some of these individuals?
We have already sued in some cases, but civil society is being strangulated economically, regulatorily, and military-wise. A militarized response to operation of society does not allow it to operate optimally. They have no money. Contrary to the propaganda you receive from government, civil society are broke at an institutional level. Some individuals have their individual money, but as civil society, there is no money to talk about. Most of the agencies that were supporting civil society technically have been like the UN agency, have been stopped from operating in Uganda, but also some funding arrangements like DGF were told to pack bags, and even the government reached an extent of saying that whatever money, whether a donor, an embassy, you have for civil society, give it to us. We know how to use it better in writing. It's not like they even said it, someone comes here. So civil society is beleaguered, is besieged, is strangulated, is emaciated. It is suffering, it is bleeding. So that civil society cannot respond, cannot substitute
to the
government.
crisis of human rights.
It is supposed to supplement government, but even its supplementary law, it cannot perform it the way you want because of government oppressive, repressive policy against civil society. It cannot perform its function. And that is one of the unhealthy results, the sour fruits of militarization of the Ugandan state, including responses to crimes like opposition, including how they react with civil society. They use a sledgehammer to crack a nut. They overreact, which is a military attitude. So even in the minister, in the parliament, we have a Ryan of Mogadishu kind of mentality, ready to devour anyone around. Check the speaker's attitude. Even MPs fear her. Some are even kneeling. Oh God, why are MPs kneeling before the speaker? That's not their function. But it shows that they are intimidated. So MPs cannot do the work. The judiciary can hardly perform its work ideally because it's also underfunded, underconstituted, and also politically muzzled. It is gagged. So you gag the parliament, you censure media, you shrink civil society, and you patronize business.
And militarize public service.
Then militarize public policing or public phases of public service. So basically you're saying only one person is going, because even all institutions of government have been killed. The message was right when he said ABC is important, is dead. Some people didn't like it, but he meant it when he said they are impotent or dead. And the first things to kill were even in the government itself. So that you have only one man running the show. By one man, I mean one family. Get me? Those are not circumstances where civil society, people must manage the expectations of us as civil society, as because The conditions in which we operate are hard. Or from academics like this one, they are hard. First of all, we must even first put food on our tables. Then we are able to do what? To respond. So yes, we are responding, but in a way that reflects the limitations that are inherent in working in a military dictatorship. You get me? If, for example, you have had some of the 3 cases which we have taken to court, I think we won 2 and lost 1 of them. Yeah. Even the one we lost, you see the reasons were really not there. It was
and the ones we won, Attorney General wrote to government to ignore the decisions of Constitutional Court.
Wow. Thank you so much. Major Awich,
roll by roll.
I know you want to respond to a couple of these, but I want to ask, in the mind of the NRM, when opposition legislators left Parliament, business went on. So the passing of the Petroleum Supply Amendment Bill and so many other works of Parliament. Is the NRM not concerned about human rights of Ugandans? NRMPs should have moved out.
No, NRM could not move out. One technical explanation is that if you follow the rules of procedure, the majority exists. However, we are alive and mindful to what you could call the moral aspect vis-a-vis the legality. The law says you have the majority, proceed. But we are mindful that even if they have the majority and we move, it is not morally correct to do it when our comrades are outside. And that is why it took time for the minister to compile 311 pages.
No,
40 days.
No, 17, it is 17 pages.
Again, I'm a victim.
Please, you are protected.
When my friends were talking, I was listening. And that's the discipline we have in NRM. It doesn't mean that whatever you are talking, I had no response to. But I chose to be civil.
I'm sorry.
And by the way, now that brings me to a doctor's comment. Doctor said I was reducing to Ugandans to riff-raff. And this was in relation to, you again want to interrupt.
No. I just want to really build on that point. When you say the NRM is concerned, and these MPs did not leave, plus the speaker actually threatened to expel opposition members of Parliament.
If you wanted me to flow, there wouldn't have been interruption. So now, if I'm to reply to interruption, you interrupt. I said the position of 1 million Ugandans coming when Bobby Wine was coming did not come from government. It was the NUP who said we are raising 1 million, and therefore government raised on what they said. Now, I said it is not correct.
There is nothing wrong with raising 1 million peaceful marchers according to the law.
But it is the police to say we can't control such a crowd.
No,
you could even say you are raising 3 million. You could even say you are raising 3 million or 5. But then the police will say, okay, now that you are saying 5, we are going to do
matters who are even committing crimes, who are even fucking each other, who are even doing all sorts of things.
Okay, now,
Major, you can continue.
I said because of that, that is when government said you can raise 2, 3, 4, 5, but we need an orderly way. So since we don't have the manpower, it can't continue. But the figure did not come from us. The figure came from there. Now that's when the doctor said,
the figure is irrelevant. This is my point, and I'm not going to become on this. The figure of marchers, the numbers, is an irrelevant consideration as far as the law is concerned.
That is why I raised it to 5 million. That's why I raised it to 5
even if
for
they
you.
were 10 million who are peaceful.
It's okay. I'm saying even if I raise it from 1 to 5.
Assume that
even if you raise it, but what we're saying is that
work on an assumption.
Counsel.
You cannot work on an assumption. I must clarify that you cannot work on an assumption that protesters are going to be violent. The assumption is protesters are going to be peaceful. When they prove you otherwise, there is a law to handle that.
You see,
okay, I'm saying,
Major will argue that there is a provision in the law where police has a right to arrest you if they anticipate you can commit crime in the near future.
So what I'm saying is...
No, he will not argue that, and he has not argued it.
What I'm saying is...
And it's not tenable.
That is what prompted the comment from the professor. But I just want to allay fears from our viewers that I am one of the most civil NRM cadres. And doctor knows it.
Even
So
me, I agree.
therefore can't reduce Ugandans to riffraff. And I get feedback on my civility. I've been a diplomat for 8 years in the headquarters of diplomacy in Geneva. So I love Ugandans. I respect Article 1 of the Constitution, and that's what the party demands. So it is misleading to say a riffraff from me to regard them, not at all. So I wanted that clarification done. Now, on the issue of the missing persons, we seem to be saying going to NERA was the only option. The issues that were raised by government in the strongest attempt to identify these people was 1, NERA, 2, Interpol, 3, forensic research, 4, immigration, to check whether this person has gone out. But the debate here is like, you just go to NERA, you don't find him, and say he's not there. No, 4 indicators were used. If we can't find him in the NERA record, can we check with Interpol? Nothing. If we can't find him in NERA and Interpol, can we check forensic? Nothing. If we can't, can we check whether he has gone out of the boundary by Interpol? So it is not true that these 18 people were checked on NERA. The records are here. The records are here.
Are they now confirmed missing or non-existent?
Now this brings the issue of burden of proof. Remember that at first they had brought a list of 400 people. Then 18 later. So what is happening is that our colleagues just bring a list and dump to you and let you clear the burden. It is actually supposed to be the opposite. You alleges us the burden of proof. Still government went ahead to prove. And it is not true that it was only on NERA. Government checked. If you say, for example,
as a way to check, you have like 4 columns or 4 rows, which they check. And the issue is, the person has said, a mother has said that my son has disappeared. Government has a duty to protect my son. The government has to show how it has performed that duty. Just by going to NERA, Interpol, forensics, and imagine, who tells you that everyone has gone out of this country? That everyone needs an Interpol. Even me, I may not have an Interpol record. You need to go there and ask for a certificate of good conduct to show it. Forensics.
I got it last month for the first time.
Yes. Okay, can I finish?
Please.
That is why we are saying government could not rely on one indicator. For example, in the case of Mbabazi Moses, there is no evidence to say the mother said the mother was recorded. But all that is done is put by what? By the NUP that Mbabazi Moses got missing. So the government said, can we check in NERA who is Mbabazi Moses? You don't get it. They said, okay, let's assume NERA it did not register for NERA. Can we go to Interpol? Maybe police has record on him. You don't get Mbabazi Moses. Then you said, why don't we go to forensic? We check somewhere, whatever it is. You don't have it. And then you go to immigration. Could this Mbabazi Moses has gone out through the borders, but we don't know. But you don't get it.
So why
so
would
what you do?
Have his record? For example, why would forensic?
Then how would we know it's not ghost?
No, give us why. Tell us why. For example, we can understand why they are going to NERA. Why would they go to forensics and expect a missing person?
To cast the net wide to find out who is Mbabazi Moses.
Okay. So
to cast the net wide.
Just a question.
To cast the net wide.
Afande, does this mean that there is no Ugandan called Mbabazi Moses? Because what I would have expected from NERA is to say, we have seen 5 Mbabazi Moses in the system. This one missing is from this village. But the others found are from different villages. Are we saying there is no Ugandan called Mbabazi Moses?
Actually, you are correct. Actually, you are correct. You read this.
They have not even said that.
It's true. You see this? Many matches found couldn't 0 to 1. So you are right. So it was done.
So
it was done.
What I want to say, we know where disappeared persons go to Uganda.
And
I can list for you. 1, police. It's a minor culprit. The majority of them are in CMI and now recently in SFC. There is no word in the report that I've seen whereby Chireka is a clearing house for CMI and now also SFC.
Moderator,
after beating you,
with the microphone.
I'm intervening. After beating you, they take you to Chireka, which Chireka gives you the police bond or takes you to court to regularize, to formalize to attempt to legalize your ordeal. So they have not gone to Chireka, they have not gone to Mbuya, they have not gone to Makinde for those prolonged detentions and what. They have not even showed us what they have got from the court martial. But most importantly, no one is telling us what they found in Entebbe dungeon of CSFC. That's what we want. We know some of the places, and also there is no indication of how many safe houses that they have visited. You know the phenomenon, the notorious phenomenon of the safe houses in Uganda. How many did the minister or his agents visit? Did he comb the safe houses that parliamentary commission of inquiry
it does not operate in a safe house?
Parliament has attempted to go to them. They even
blocked parliament.
Yes.
Thank you.
Now, therefore, government tried to cast the net as wide as possible.
It didn't. No. That one will not allow. It did not. And I've told you, it didn't go to SFC, it didn't go to CMI, it didn't go to any barracks, it didn't go to where they normally put disappeared Ugandans. And we know these places. So a report that has no information on the CSFC detentions, on the CMI illegal detentions, on police illegal detentions, it's not even a report
Counsel,
on the disappeared persons.
Even in court, when your colleague is speaking, you sit down.
I'm happy you kept quiet.
So now,
I'm keeping quiet. Speak.
Yeah.
Yes, speak.
So I am saying, I wanted to correct the misconception that NERA was the only checklist. I am saying government used many checkpoints. And therefore, we are even still open if you still think you can propose other ways of checking. Like we are open,
proposed.
okay?
So
we are still open.
They didn't even interview Nabanja.
From the
14, there is nothing from Nabanja.
From the 400, now at least we have 18 people. So therefore, this is the position on the missing persons. Now, about your question and the MPs remain NRM, I had started by saying, legally, we could do business, but morally, we are alive and concerned. And that is why we worked on this report. Now,
no. Working on this report is not a moral favor. It's not a manna from heaven. It is not Eden. It is a government responsibility to give us a report like this. Only that this time, it is half-baked. It is a pack of lies.
Therefore, I am saying that we need to give Ugandans service. Plenary is where laws are processed, where policies are processed. So if an MP is missing, then that is a disservice for the constituency that is representing. Now, we do hope that even when the leader of opposition said they wanted a comprehensive report, in our view, this is a report. Let's wait from them to hear the gaps that are missing, and we shall respond accordingly. But I would pray that now we resume parliament so that all the citizens are represented in parliament. That is it.
One question, NERA confirmed the 9 people. The government was able to trace 9 people in NERA. Where are they?
Now, that is where the next step to follow where they are, since that they are identified. That is the next step we are going to. Since they are found as Ugandans, it's now the work in progress. Now, about a comment about civil society. So I hope the MPs are coming back. And they attended yesterday anyway. Now, about civil society, there's a lot of cry about civil society. I've traveled, like a doctor said. I noticed in Ethiopia that the civil society in Ethiopia, if you talk of civil society freedom, I think you better check other jurisdictions. Did you know that in Ethiopia, if you are like a Sarah's NGO or civil society, and you're going to Gulu, you to go to government to issue a receipt to get your own fuel. That I'm going to Gulu, I need fuel. It reached a point where civil society relocated to Nairobi. Now here, there was a civil society bill which was passed. The NGOs were really involved in the making of that law. It came back and forth, right from the processing of the law. And even now, the civil society in under Ministry of Internal Affairs, We think we are trying our best, but we may not be perfect. But I can assure you, I've seen other societies or other jurisdictions where your own fuel, you get power from the government to
Is
get
that
your
the
fuel.
best standard we should have for
it's-
Uganda?
Yes, it is
Afande,
not, but
it's
I'm
as if
saying.
you are saying that if I'm giving you food from a toilet, you eat after all others are dead. That's an example you are saying.
No,
here.
the best thing
Me, I
the
have
best
said,
thing the Major
even
is
the
doing.
processing of the law.
The good thing Major comes from northern Uganda, and the majority of people from northern Uganda are tall people. So Major is saying, how can you say that is short when they are pygmies in Ichuli, I mean in the Congo forest? So he's comparing Uganda to a place where there are no rights, Ethiopia. I thought he was going to talk about Sweden or talk about
South
Africa
or
or another
Nairobi.
or Nairobi, but he chooses Ethiopia.
I
You
could
know
even
Ethiopia.
speak about Sweden.
You know
because
Ethiopia.
I'm exposed to the civil society working of Sweden. I'm actually exposed to all
Briefly,
civil
Major.
society. So, civil society, even in Sweden, are complaining. For example, civil society who work against migration issues, they complain of government denying them, government of listen. They have lots of issues. In my work at the UN, before I meet government, there's a procedure called shadow report. Shadow reports are presented by civil society. So I met civil society from all over the world, including Sweden. If you see the way civil society in Sweden are crying, especially those who are living in my asylum-seeking areas, it's a condition that prevails all over the world by the state thinking they're doing what is right and also forces working against it. So the civil society matter in Uganda, I started from legislation. Legislation, the Processing of Civil Society Act, when it was a bill, it was back and forth for a long time. Bring your input, do this, until it became an act. Of course, not all of us would have a law passed in your own interest. Remember, we are passing for the whole country. So, the issue of civil society that has come up again and again is shrinking civil space, but at least I'm glad we are here. Now, the doctor will say, will twist the example like it puts my height in the north. Of course, it is a derogatory example. Again, like he said, I was taking Ugandans as riffraff. Maybe that is the academic.
No, being
they
thorough
like
has
using
never been derogatory. It's a compliment.
maybe it is the type of the academic language. But what I'm saying is, even here, we are in a civic society forum, and that is why we are here. So, if that is shrinking, then we wait to see. But we believe that we shall try our best, right from the legislation, from the lawmaking process of
This is
NGO
the
Act.
remnant of the civil society, and we are happy to have it.
Thank you so much, Major Awich, for those comments. Unfortunately, our time for that topic is fast spent. We have to change topics and talk about COP28 happening in Dubai. And I want to start with you, Counsel Eron. Over time, we've seen these conferences and summits. 1, 2, 3, today we are 28. And many promises have been made. Climate change at the center stage, financing, changing to green energy. What do we see as the key issue being discussed in Dubai?
One of the primary issues is what they call the global stock take. In the COP21 in Paris, the parties committed themselves to do a global stock take after every 5 years, and it's now about time they did it. It's on the agenda. They are going to review the plans, the commitments of state, the efforts, and see how they are aligning or failing to align with the climate goals. Of course, the primary climate goal is to keep global heating within 1.5 degrees Celsius average global heating, compared to pre-industrial times around 1850. 1850, that was the time of the Industrial Revolution, and it is when we we started manufacturing the climate crisis we have today, with the need for energy to power industrial revolution, to power industry. And then the reliance was mostly on fossil fuels. But as the climate science has demonstrated, fossil fuels are very dangerous, and every year they kill at least 5 million people, although pollution generally kills around 7 million people every year globally. Hence, again, fossil fuels itself is one of the major issues. So we have global stake, we have how to deal with the monster called fossil fuels. That's why people have been calling for a just transition from dirty fossil fuels, that is coal, oil, and gas, to clean energy forms such as solar, such as hydro, such as wind. And Africa is known to have a great potential for renewable energy. And renewable energy is contrary to misinformation, are actually generally cheap compared to other forms of energy, because it's much cheaper to extend solar with improving technology to a village, a remote village, than starting a power plant, a fossil fuel power project plant, and so on and so forth. The other issues on financing, climate finance is a big elephant in the room. And why? Because of loss and damage. When this climate crisis plays itself out, either through, for example, through increased weather events such as floods, mudslides, earthquakes being more ferocious, more frequent, more intense, and so on and so forth, or even drought and causing food insecurity. So to respond to damage, to loss and damage, you need money. And that money, we feel as people from Africa that yes, we can raise some money. Yes, the private sector should raise some money. But the biggest contributors to this crisis of climate change is the industrial north, and also now recently the big industrializing countries like China and India. So the rich world, which has contributed like 99% of this calamity, which unfortunately affects all of us, and even more unfortunately, poor countries are more vulnerable because responses require money, but also the geographical position of some states, like the small island states, the low-lying island states, which will be completely submerged in the near future into water if sea levels continue rising because of increasing global average temperatures. People on the African continent, who poverty itself is the biggest form of vulnerability, and most African states are actually poor, so they cannot afford to respond. They cannot even afford to mitigate. So there is both a legal and also a moral responsibility for the rich world to finance solutions to the problem they have mothered. They reluctantly promised some hot air balloon, 100 billion annually, which they have never really fulfilled. But there was a climate ambition summit for an acceleration agenda around September, convened by the UN Secretary General to try to build the momentum for financing. So financing is a big deal, and financing and loss and damage, those issues will be tackled together. There is a need, people feel, for new additional financing. There is some financing that is embedded within the current legal framework. The Paris Agreement, of course, is the primary legal instrument that is used to face the climate challenge. But even the Paris Agreement itself comes within the larger framework of the United Nations Convention on Climate Change. And each year there is a climate meeting, but each subsequent year climate meetings get more serious. Why? Because the climate crisis manifests itself in a more deadly fashions. The politicians were myopic and were uninterested in the climate crisis for long, because the politicians' interests mostly, so not just NRM, it's normally the next election. And yet the climate crisis comes in a slow-moving fashion, but the way I'm told the frog is cooked, it keeps thickening. By the time it realizes that it's being boiled, it is too late, because it has spent energy in trying to deceive itself that it can thicken its skin to resist the temperature. So the climate crisis has been fired by greed right from the beginning, but also in reacting and trying to solve it. Greed has really kept adding more scales into the eyes of policymakers primarily, but because policymakers are shielded by profit, by interest from solving this problem, they have not educated the population about the danger of the problem and driven them to finance. But it is gaining traction. It is gaining traction because you can't argue with death. You can't argue with loss and damage. You can't argue with hunger. You can't argue with the things like cancer. You can't argue with them. So we are awakening to the problem, and yeah, that is it for now.
Thank you so much, Counsel Eron. Dr. Sarah, he mentions a climate crisis, and a person down in Bushenyi or Kitigumo, Rukunjiri might not understand. What is this crisis? What should he or she be worried about in the near future?
Well, for Uganda, if anybody thinks climate change is a hoax, like once Trump thought climate change was a hoax and pulled out of the Paris Agreement, and now given that he's top in the polls in the US elections for next year, so if such a leaders come to power, you have reason to worry. But if anybody is still thinking that climate change is a hoax, let them look at their roads. All feeder roads in the country have been washed away by rain. We have floods in Kasese. We have floods in Imbare killing people. We have landslides. We have torrential rains now driving into El Nino, prolonged seasons. Uganda used to be a hot and wet climate, but we now have prolonged drought. We have prolonged rains. Even that has disrupted the farming seasons and caused food insecurity. For Uganda, this is what majorly we have experienced. Major bridges have been swept away, including the disruption on Kampala-Mbarara Highway. Many bridges are washed away. It disrupts transport, it disrupts the market network, disrupts consumption networks and food supply chains. So if anybody thinks that climate change is some debate for young people, because the drive has been really by young people, and we should give them credit because the future belongs to them. So many people think that it's these young people just globetrotting and it's not something to take serious. They need to wake up. Beyond Uganda, we have wildfires. One of the major, significances of climate change effects, wildfires, forests burning, and, wildfire killing people, killing wildlife, killing ecosystem. We have, all these are climate change effects. I don't know what else to add. You can talk about increased hurricanes and the rest. So the weather has changed. Nature has changed. Mother Nature is angry, and we must restore it. That's basically what the quest for climate justice is about. So when you go to COP28, the focus is on fast-tracking the transition for clean energy. People are talking
Sarah,
about...
just before you go to the...
Okay.
you remember,
Yes.
but to emphasize more on the points of the adverse effects. You talked about floods washing away. Do you realize that the floods are increasing because the rain is increasing? You can receive rain for a whole season in one day, then go for months without rain.
Yeah.
So it causes food insecurity. That Karamoja hunger that was there in 2022 and before, that is climate change for you. 4 years of climate change induced hunger in Kenya. Actually the whole of Africa, 4 consecutive years of that. Recently across DRC Congo, there is one area which Uganda shares with Congo or neighbors Rwanda, like in March, they were hit. And for us, we did the report on the Ugandan side. People actually died, homes were buried. The same phenomenon, or less, played out in Kasese. There was some flooding that was equally felt around Mbale, and these Bududa incidents will continue increasing in number and velocity as we see, but also the temperature rise in Kampala this year. It was not, of course, this year is among the hottest year, and at a global level, 3 consecutive years have broken the record, I think from June up to September. But we could feel it. It was not something you were waiting for the World Meteorological Authority to tell you. Most people are sleeping naked in Kampala from June to they are just starting to cover themselves now. In a way that we never use it. Kampala is hot comparatively, but it is too much heat. You can't even put in a vest. You feel it in your car, in your home. So climate change is home. Sorry for the interruption. Sorry.
No, that was good interruption. So these are the issues that we must prevent before they escalate further. Because you can imagine if we go to wildfires here in Uganda, and it is not far-fetched. How do we, if we cannot manage to restore, all feeder roads countrywide have been swept away, major bridges swept away. So if we don't stop, we shall not, how prepared are we to manage the diverse effects of climate change as a country? We shall lose more people to hunger, to floods, to landslides, to all these temperatures and the rest. It is catastrophic. So the earlier we wake up, the better. So when you look at, for me, the major issues is the zero emissions and climate finance. I know the agenda is a lot, but also the issue of sensitization, because people think climate change is propaganda or something for a few people to talk about. We must all be concerned because nature affects all of us. It's where we derive our livelihood. All of us. There is no exception. Whether you are in less developed countries, I've seen the last months before the rains came, how the most developed countries were struggling, brought to their knees by wildfires. They could not manage. So if the most developed are on their knees, then how about us who are, you know,
they declared
living at the mercy of nature?
They declared emergencies. Countries would come from each other with fighter bombs. Things, if we get a fire like that, who will help us?
Nobody.
Kenya? Do they have those planes?
Nobody. So for me, there are 3 issues: sensitization, financing, and the net zero agenda. So if you look at financing, we are looking at the more developed and the biggest emitters contributing more to the quest for restoring Mother Nature.
China and US.
Yes, but now the budget for, you know, the budget for up to 2030, the 5.8 trillion, with about 600 billion per year, we have only realized the 89.6 billion by 2021. I don't know, maybe now it has increased a little bit. So the financing is slow. People talk, that's why the likes of Greta said it's just blah, 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 because of lack of commitment. So we need to look at sensitization, awareness and mitigation, which comes with adaptation. We need to look at climate financing for climate energy, climate technology, and the things we need to do to restore nature.
Thank you so much.
Because of transformation, I was waiting for that. Transforming from this to...
NRM has vulgarized transformation.
I really wanted to benefit from it. It is one of the Dubai agenda.
Thank you so much. I want to bring in...
but the most important thing really for climate change is transition.
Yes,
just
transition.
Just a swift transition from coal, oil, and gas that are the mother of the climate crisis to clean energy that are solutions to the climate crisis. Because climate change is caused by emissions of carbon into the atmosphere. Once they concentrate there, they block sun rays from radiating back to the sun, resulting into a heated globe that causes glaciers to melt and sea temperatures and sea levels to rise. When they rise, some countries like Uganda get submerged, people died, and entire civilizations are wiped away. You get me?
Yeah, maybe just to repeat before Doctor comes in. The agenda, Afando wanted the theme for COP28. Fast tracking the transition to a clean energy future. I think that's what you were.
It is
looking for.
transition, not transformation.
Transition.
I think I agree and I share the views given by my colleagues here. Environment is one of the things which is very important in our life but has been neglected. I teach environmental history to my students, master's class, and most of them come to that class even without the slightest knowledge of any environment. Now, COP28 and many others which have been there is just one of the avenues that are trying to go in this endeavor. And indeed, to agree with Dr. Sarah here, these young people are doing a tremendous job that many people had failed to do.
Yeah.
Look at our budgets in our countries here and look at what is the budget towards environmental restoration, for instance, mitigation, and so on. The other week, a colleague of mine was defending his PhD thesis on emissions, governance, and environmental management in the East African community. And I asked him, wait a minute, do they even have an agenda towards that? Recently, there was an environmental meeting in Uganda here.
Yes.
For East African
we even have a climate something act.
East African countries. They discussed there, were they in Munyonyo? They discussed, but at the end of the day, what did they come out with that somebody can take home to say in the next 1 year or 5 years, other than coming here to speak very nice English? I saw Ruto was almost the chair. He was speaking very nice English. But I want to applaud Kenya. Kenya is doing well in Eastern Central Africa. And we are trying to investigate in this PhD thesis. It came out, it brought out a number of things why Kenya is doing very well. Kenya, followed by Tanzania, then Uganda is there, of course Burundi, South Sudan, worst, DRC, the worst. We associated that this thing goes with governance, good governance. Once there is a good governance, there will be growth. Because at first, when growth is starting, if you look at the 5 stages of Rostos, stages of growth, as you start, emissions will be very high. As you go and reach up there, you reach a time when people now want to live in good environment. And therefore, they come up with green energy that is talking about. Instead of using electricity and other things, you now use gas. Even in Kampala here, just give an example. If you go to homes, affluent homes, they are now using gas, which is clean energy. They are not using, if you go to our villages, people are still using tadoba. Tadoba is a very dangerous thing. I don't know how some of us survived. So we feel that it goes with the governance. Then number 2, you need people to come together, because environment, there is nothing much you get out of it in real sense of investment. So we need countries to come up to agree on certain things that each country can do, because we are, as he said, we are at different levels of development. So what can Uganda do? Can we plant trees? Can we do the other, and the other people give us money? And the other one is what can Africa do? It's a sad thing that African Union now is a place for just congratulating dictators who have stolen the election. In the last election, the other day, they were welcoming Mnangagwa with his theft in Zimbabwe. And the other day, they will be welcoming another one. Very soon, they will be welcoming other dictators. Salva Kiir, my friend. So, what is the AU agenda, African Union agenda in this issue? So this matter, unfortunately, Sarah, my worry, and maybe Counsel, is that it has been left to Bill Gates.
Yeah.
Bill Gates is the one. And for me, Bill Gates, I don't trust him because of his business acumen. How, maybe after 10 years, we discover that this was just his business agenda. So what are governments doing? But you can't blame Bill Gates. He's coming in a gap where there is nobody. And if, for example, some of you may not know, Bill Gates or Bill and Gates Foundation has led to growing of very many trees in Uganda here. There is a funding which comes, you can declare your trees and they take them up for environment. And I heard some people criticizing that how can we be planting trees when we don't have food? Who told you that trees and food, one is a substitute? No, they are not. They are not. So I think even from the local level, we need to encourage people to grow Mrs. tree in their coffee plantations. There are trees that do very well with their with the crops.
Farming,
Tree growing is one of the major things for us. That's what we can contribute. But number two, how are we going to? For us, we are just planning to start to mine our oil, but the developed world is saying we should not. So how do we balance? In our budget, we need to see clearly, how do we balance between growth or development and environmental management? So these are things that we need to look at. And for me, I think these young men have done a great job. We just need governments to copy and start putting deliberate money in our budgets to deal with these problems. Because if we don't, they will wipe us. For those who think that it is a hoax, let people just go on Ginger Road around Kyambogo when it has drizzled. Then you will know that we are in trouble. But why are we in that situation? Because people have inhabited in swamps, in wetlands. And because the water has nowhere to go, it comes to the roads and the houses. And in NEMA, sometimes you wonder, this NEMA thing here, why don't they close it and we know it is not there? NEMA, it is what? National Environmental Management, what? It's mismanagement. Mismanagement authority.
Doctor, if I may ask you, just sorry, moderator, you are emphasizing the issue of planting trees, which is good. But how about protecting the already existing trees? We
That is
have
even
high
more
levels
important.
of environmental degradation.
Just if you give me a minute.
Please.
Let me even give you that natural trees provide environmental protection better than these exotic trees. Because the exotic trees we are planting here are not, some of them are not even supposed to be here. For example, somebody was doing an experiment on pines. Wherever pines have been grown, there is a big problem because they are not supposed to be grown in this. So our forests like Mavira, like Budongo, like others, this idea of the president that forests can be cleared for sugarcane plantation, it is better we don't have sugar.
Thank you so much. Major Awich, the NRM is planning to revive this economy with oil. And according to COP28, we have to phase out oil and gas. In fact, the president proposed the construction of a gas pipeline still to Tanzania. How is the NRM going to balance these two?
I think NRM is alive to that fact. In simple answer is that this will be a progressive achievement. It won't come all of a sudden. So you know the gravity the world is involved in and the need for all those. So it will take some time, and therefore NRM is alive to that. But also, petroleum mine is not only for burning. There are other things that can be used to use it, like jelly, whatever it is, other things, plastic things. So it will not be a one-day off to deal away with the oil as such, for mainly the two reasons. That is going to be a phase-on process. It will take some time, but also that oil is not only used for carbon, for burning. So we are alive to that fact, and I think we shall want a safe environment. But I want to add my voice to my colleagues who think that the doubting Thomases are still saying, like American president, one thought that it's a hoax. There's some research which we have done that maybe this is not the first life on Earth. It is possible that actually at one time, civilizations were buried and it regrew again. Up to now, they are still discovering big cities in America, which nobody knew, which were buried. So I think environment is a reality that we have to face it. But also, we are being also help, if we could use the word. You see, many social developments and movements, they're always triggered by technological development. For example, slavery went on for a long time and people thought slavery was right. Until capital developed to a point that if you needed mass production, you actually need machines. So swiftly, the morality, the bishops and the reverend started seeing slavery as inhuman and unchristian. Yet, even at say, some point to cross from here to America, the slaves would be baptized in the ship and tell you Jesus Christ loves you, but they're taking you for slavery. But when technology came, technology is one thing that saves. So you have technology which is now acting to facilitate the change. But of course, like big oil interest companies or countries thought that the technology was to defeat their interest. But the truth is, environment is a threat. So whether technology has come at the right time, we could basically explain that the challenge has triggered our mind to get technology that can substitute. And we hope we go that way. So just to mention that as government, over a period of time, we have tried some steps, though in a small way. There are so many projects that go on, including legislations, institutions like NEMA, although they may not be doing much, but also the actual planting of trees. So if you look at it from that angle, the legal provisions available, the institutional framework put in place, and actions taken, in a small way we are trying, but that is the right direction. But just to say that environment is real, and it's a matter of concern for us all, and if we don't, then civilization will be buried as it is presumed to have happened in the past.
The politics has not changed. The politics has been blocking progress. And to be very clear, we are talking about an oil and a fossil fuel problem, and it is being held in a lion's den. Holding COP28 in Dubai, an oil country with presided over by an industry of captain of oil capture, is like a meeting of antelopes in a pride of lions. So just the setting itself, it doesn't give you much optimism. However, generally speaking, he has made there was a lot of pressure on him. And of course, the climate science couldn't be clear. It is becoming compelling by each day, and the consequences are beginning to play out in a way that I no longer need to be able to explain even to my grandmother climate change. They can see. Some people used to have 2 seasons, they have 1. Like things of climate change are no longer things that are difficult to explain to the local man. So the politician trying to quote the local man will change their politics, and we shall see some change. But it will be beyond COP28. COP28 is very important, but it's not going to be a resounding success. No. The oil people have flown in their delegates like they did in Egypt. So they have been undermining this movement. I'm happy we have an environmental historian here. Since the 1970s, companies like Shell and the big, like Chevron and so on and so forth, they knew this problem was there. Then they invested a lot of money in false science to create an artificial debate. Oh. When you see that Trump was saying that it is a hoax, although we know he's impulsive, but he had some scientists sponsored by captains of industry deliberately to cause misinformation, to mislead, and for many years were stolen from the climate movement, from the environment movement, and we will pay for that. So we will not meet the Paris goal of 1.5, and some people will die because of that. However, the question is that every degree matters. So we hope that if at least we can hit the climate goal of 2 degrees, limit it at 2, damage will be done, but it will not be as lethal. But we need to know what, as a country, we need to do as other countries do their work. It is an individual country's responsibility to do something, especially when it comes to adaptation. Of course, mitigation, but mostly adaptation, because we have to deal with the consequences, and we are not a major emitter. Maybe after eco, but we are not a major emitter. So why are we not protecting our wetlands? There is a time we are writing to name we just did photography documentation around the Kampala Road. You'll be overwhelmed by, you may think wetlands are over, but even the few are being further degraded every day.
Yeah.
Trees, forests, we are blessed with forests. You see, a forest is not a correction, it's not every group of trees that's a forest. Some are just plantations. Now, a forest has indigenous trees in a mixed species.
That's what she was saying.
You
Yes,
get me?
we-
And it has biodiversity. We don't even have only a climate crisis. We have a triple planetary crisis: biodiversity and loss, climate crisis, and then pollution and waste. And they are all interlinked. The climate emergency worsens the biodiversity loss, and it is caused and also worsens pollution. A good example is the plastic pollution. 99% of plastics come from the same problem: oil. So you need a wholesome approach of solving this. Our neighbor Rwanda, you can't go there and see a Kavera. Even straws are paper straws. Plastics can be dealt away. We need to stop the plastic lobby in the country and implement the law.
Many countries in Africa have done away with this bottling.
Yes, yes. There is even now plastic bottles from plants. That's what we want. We don't need plastics from fossil fuels.
But just to add on what you are saying, good governance is key. Like you can see during the Ukraine-Russia war, because of little supply of gas, France had gone back to exploiting coal. And if you check the emissions now from France have gone again high. Then you are talking about wetlands. Wetlands disappearing is just an effect of poor governance, poor governance of the country. You find these local government administrations are collapsed. Institutions which are supposed to protect the environment, like NEMA, they are the ones who are saying impact assessment, good, terrible.
Because wetlands and forests are called nature-based solutions. They actually help with mitigation by sucking carbon from the atmosphere. There is no better machine than a tree to suck carbon, which is dangerous, and other poisonous gases.
Or papyrus.
There is no better filter or whether national water than a natural wetland.
Papyrus.
Things like Katonga, that they are called kidneys. So forests are lungs of the world, and wetlands are kidneys of the world.
Yeah.
We need to protect our kidneys. We need to protect our forests, our lungs, so that we have real nature-based solutions. They are cheap. They are within our means. But at an individual level, we need to, the problem of governance, we can't walk, we can't even, Sarah can't even run here.
Yeah, no. I stopped even jogging. You are trailed.
Why? Because we have...
Even this weight is thanks to
You are
reading
mixing
Civic
issues.
space.
Yes, you can't run here. No, it's not mixing issues because
He's talking
when
of
you
trailing.
run...
He's talking of trailing.
Okay,
You're
let me
mixing issues.
let's go
Counsel,
the
unfortunately, our time is fast spent. Thank you so much for those remarks. And he says we need to protect our kidneys,
And
the
lungs.
and the lungs, which are the forests. Thank you so much, Major Awich, for joining us today. Thank you so much, Counsel Eron Kiiza, for joining us today. Dr. Robert Ojambo, thank you so much for being with us today. And Dr. Sarah Bireete, thank you so much for joining us today. And to you, our viewer, thank you so much for being with us today. It is the Citizens Chat Show on Civic Space TV. Remember, this is made possible by the Center for Constitutional Governance. Good evening, and we shall see you next time.